Happy Hour Friday starts now. What's up, everybody? Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. What's up, everybody, on the live video on YouTube and on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. I was reading a story. I was telling Josh before the show, and I just started laughing about it in mid-sentence there. But we're ready to go on a Happy Hour Friday. Phillies lose last night. We'll dive into what happened there. The month of April is behind us. Last night was the first game in the month of May. They lost. They are 0-1 in May, 17-13 in the month of April. I want to ask you guys out there to give the Phillies a grade for the month of A. What would your report card say for the Phillies? Month of April, March, you get those couple games in March. So the first full month of the baseball season is behind us. The Phillies 17-13 in the month, but last night in the month of May they lost, so they are 17-14 overall, but 17-13 in the month. ESPN.com handed out their April grades for all 30 teams. The Mets, by the way, they got an A, as did other National League teams. The Mets got an A, the Cubs an A-. That looks like it. The only two teams in the National League to get, San Francisco, they got an A. So the Mets got an A, San Francisco got an A, and the Cubs got an A-. The Padres got an A-. They're another team. So every other team in the league all graded. What would your grade be for the month of April for the Philadelphia Phillies? 17-13. It feels like, okay? It feels like there has been more complaining and criticism than positive vibes about this team. This is a team that has won more games than it's lost, believe it or not. They finished the month. They are 3.5 games behind the Mets in National League East play. The Mets have lost 2 in a row. The Phillies had a chance to gain a game on them last night against a bad Nationals team, which you're not going to win every single game, but that's a game last night that, you only scored 2 runs. So I look back and say, was it a winnable game? Scoring 2 runs is a hard way to say it was a winnable game, but your defense let you down in that game last night. I mean, obviously, Bryce Harper has to make that play at first base. It's an awful play by a big league first baseman. Just has to get done, and he doesn't make that play. And essentially, that cost them the game last night. Taijuan Walker, God bless Taijuan Walker, who got into the 6th last night, gave up 1 earned run, 4 hits, did give up 3 walks, 4 hits, so 7 base runners in the game last night. He gets saddled with the loss. And now what's up with Taijuan Walker? We'll get into that. That's going to be I don't think it's going to be interesting. Taijuan Walker's not starting anymore, okay? That's not happening. But what happens with Ranger and everything else that now starts because Ranger Suarez is going to pitch on Sunday. But this game's going pretty interesting last night, right? This game all kind of broke. The Phillies take a lead in this game. We forget the Phillies had the lead in this game. They went up first in that 5th inning, and Alec Boehm, of all guys, who's been terrible this year, gets the RBI single, and the Phillies take a 1-0 lead, and you're thinking, okay, because Brad Lord comes in, and he's been terrible this year, and much like this has been the story of our life, right? Some pitcher you've never heard of shuts down the Phillies. You throw Verlander against the Phillies, they find ways to beat him. Throw Jacob deGrom against the Phillies in his Cy Young seasons, the Phillies beat him. Lord throws with an ERA of 6.79, and the Phillies can't scratch out but 1 run against this scrub. All right? So the Nationals come up after the Phillies score in the 6th, and here we go. The Abrams double. Abrams' name keeps coming up in a lot of this stuff here. He has been really good in this series. Low singles to right. There's an RBI there. But in that situation, you had the fielding error by Harper, which all of a sudden that brings another run home. Now it's 2-1. Garcia singles. There it's 3-1. And that error by Harper probably is a double play. It's hit so hard that it's either a tag of the bag and then throw to second and you get the double play, or you go right to second and then right back to first. So there could have been a 3-6 double play or a 3-6-3 double play. I mean, any way you slice it, at the big league level, that has to be a run. Then they can't get out of the inning. They got to bring Kirkering in. And, oh, my gosh, you give up a stolen base of home plate in that situation last night. I mean, what are we doing out here? Finally, they get out of that inning. And in the sixth, you scratch out a run, and you're thinking, okay, here's an opportunity. Castellanos, who really ripped one with an infield single back to the pitcher, but it got a run home. It did the job, and it's 4-2, and then the two guys back-to-back strikeout. Right? Back-to-back strikeouts, Kepler, Bohm, thanks for playing. Now, a lot of people wondering, Kepler, they're facing a lefty. Do you hit for Kepler in that spot with a couple runners on base? They had chose not to hit for Kepler in that spot. So he strikes out, then Bohm strikes out. Now you got a couple more opportunities, right? And just can't get anything going against the bullpen. So it was one of those nights that the offense just wasn't there. But it's a night where you scored 2 runs and you look back and say, I probably should have won that game with the 2 runs that I got. Hard to say you should win games when you only scored 2 runs, though. And you're going to have nights against, bad teams where you just don't have it. But that's a game that they probably could and should have won. Now, Castellanos, by the way, he comes up in the bottom of the 8th. He's got 2 on with a chance to, for once, do something. Please, Nick Castellanos, can you give me something in a big moment? And he grounds into a double play. And that kind of ends it. Well, actually, it didn't really end it because Rojas goes rolling into third base and then trying to get adulation from the fans in the dugout for hitting a triple last night. And it's the only triple maybe in the history of baseball where you're like, you idiot, what are you doing? But he's on third base, and you have a little bit of a pulse left, and Marchand lines out to center field. And that's all, folks. 4-2, Phillies lose. But some other storylines in the game last night. I always like to look for the story within the story. And one of the things of this game here is, Taijuan Walker has actually pitched pretty darn well this year for all the criticism he takes, and deservingly so. He gets paid $18 million. For $18 million, did he do enough for other teams to say, you know what? The guy's got a 2.54 ERA. He got into the 6th inning last night. The guy's been pretty darn good this year. Now, he's got another year at $18 million. But I left the big picture thinking there was no way in hell I thought that they could trade Taijuan Walker. Did he do enough in 6 starts for a team to take a flyer on him? I don't know. What do you guys think? My inclination would be the Phillies may be able to try to send him to a team that needs a pitcher. Baltimore needs a pitcher. Yesterday we were talking about Cedric Mullins for Ranger Suarez. Would they take Taijuan Walker for Cedric Mullins? I doubt it because he's getting paid $18 million this year and next year. But is there a team out there that based on the 6 starts from Taijuan Walker would actually take a flyer on him? I mean, I don't know where he sits, but a 2.54 ERA has got to be pretty darn good in the pantheon of starting pitching right now, right? His whip is 1.3, which is just okay. It's not great. So he is getting out of some innings. He's kind of wiggling his way out of innings. Now, I want to be clear. This isn't me saying I think Taijuan Walker's great. This is more saying he has exceeded my expectations and that possibly he has generated a little bit of trade value. A little bit. But when I say a little bit, okay? A little bit. When I say a little bit, can he get you a bullpen arm? Can he get you a platoon player for Max Kepler? Can he get you a platoon player that is an upgrade over Brandon Marsh or Johan Rojas? Can he get you a platoon player someplace else? I don't know, third base. Are you ready to start platooning Alec Boehm? Are we at that point with Alec Boehm yet where the Phillies are saying, listen, I just don't think Boehm is good enough. Right now, we've got to think about something outside the box. I don't think that's the case. I just don't think that's the case. But I could be wrong on this one. He has 6 starts. He's 1-3 with a 2.54 ERA. I mean, he threw pretty well last night. There was a reason why the Phillies gave this guy $18 million at one point. He was a innings eater. With the Mets in 2022, this is a guy that went 12-5 with a 3.49 ERA and a whip. He had back-to-back years where he had a whip of 1.9, 1.8, 1.2, 1. I mean, he had a little stretch where this guy was actually a pretty solid and serviceable pitcher. That's why they paid him $18 million, and it certainly has not worked out for them. There's no question that it has not worked out, this deal. But in the 6 starts that he has made, I got to give him a passing grade. He's been better than anybody could have anticipated.
So, out of 100 starting pitchers in baseball, okay, that's your context here, Taijuan Walker at 2.54 is 19th.
Okay, so 19th.
The 19th best ERA.
It's pretty good.
That sounds like a tradable piece to me.
I mean, yeah, I would think so. I would think that is a tradable possibility, that someone might say, you know what, I'll take that guy. I would take him because I need pitching so bad.
Right. You just need someone to go out there and give you 5 innings a night and not implode every night.
I don't know what you'd get back in return for him.
For example, the Dodgers have had 11 different starting pitchers this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams, like there's an article, and we have some audio about this. There's an article I referenced the other day from Matt Gelb. The Phillies have 13 pitchers on their roster. When Ranger Suarez gets elevated to pitch on Sunday, it will be the first time that one of the 13 pitchers on the opening day roster pitches in a game this year. To put it into context, the Dodgers have started 11 different guys. Not 11 different pitchers have pitched. They have started 11 different starting pitchers this year.
Correct.
The Phillies have started 5. So, I have to think like a team like the Dodgers or even the Braves. Right now, the Braves are a team that is really struggling with pitching. Everybody needs pitching, starting pitching. The Phillies have too much of it. So, that was a big picture takeaway that I'm watching the game and I'm thinking, you know what? Taijuan Walker hasn't been bad. I mean, he might have just been good enough to at least gain some interest. So I guess does he not qualify?
So he doesn't qualify technically.
I'm wondering because I'm looking at the ESPN.com stats. He's not on the list, but his 2.54 ERA would be somewhere in like the 20 range.
Yeah, well, what happened was I went to MLB.com and saw that he doesn't qualify as a starter. So I then did the list of everybody just in general and then weeded out the guys.
Does he not qualify because he doesn't have enough innings?
Not enough innings, yeah.
That's weird, right? He has not thrown enough innings this year.
But he has started every game he's pitched.
He's pitched 6 games, yes. He has thrown this year. What is the innings minimum on that? Because he has pitched this year 28 and a third inning. So what's the innings minimum that you have to pitch to qualify right now? He's pitched 28 innings in 6 games. So, he's getting about a little bit under 5 innings a start, which not great. That's the thing. They're not really – the leash on him is pretty short. They're not really letting him go. He went into the 6th last night, and they took him out of that game. But I don't know. When I say I like to get the story within the story, the story within the story for me was, hey, Walker pitched well again. Now it's against the Nationals. Not a great team, although they got a young little offense that is it's a little something, I guess. But my takeaway and my story within the story from the game last night was, did Taijuan Walker, in his 6-game starting kind of fill-in here, did he do enough to gain some trade? We'll talk a little bit more Bob Wankel at 3 o'clock today. The other thing from last night, a little story within the story is, Rojas, the triple that he hits and explaining to people why that's not a good play is you don't get thrown out at third base in that situation to end the game, for God's sakes. You're on second base. Somebody hits a single. You're going to score anyway. This is the one of those things that's you get a kid and he's staring at you and there's 2 outs and he wants to steal third base. And it's like you try to explain. You don't want to make the last out of the inning at third base. Why? Well, you're going to score on a single anyway, right? The ball is hit off the bat. You're running right away. The ball hits the outfield grass. You're already halfway on your way home. So there's no reason for you to have to take a chance to get to third base last night. It's just another moment of Rojas just being completely brain dead out there. He just doesn't have any baseball IQ. And as much as I like Rojas, I think he just gets a bad rap. I mean, he's hitting over 300. His center field play hasn't been great. What I have said about him, the bad rap is I think he is a much more valuable player than a player like Marsh. But he just doesn't have the baseball IQ to be a winning player. Like, I don't think you can win a World Series with his IQ, his baseball IQ. I mean, he might be a very intelligent man. Maybe he aced his ACTs or SATs. I don't know what his off-the-field intelligence is. But his baseball IQ is just not there. And that play last night, the Phillies had so many base-running blunders and so many defensive miscues. And you can't have it. He's supposed to be out there because of elite glove defense. And right now we're talking more and more about his hitting. 305 for Rojas. And sadly, last night they scratch out 9 hits. He hits a triple in the game. And he's one guy. He's the only guy on the team over 300. Rojas is. He's the only guy on the entire team. Now, not a lot of 300 hitters in baseball anymore. Does he qualify right now, Rojas?
The reason why Walker doesn't qualify is because 3 of his 6 starts, he's only gotten to 5 innings. So he's not getting enough innings.
Yeah,
per
I mean,
start.
there's generally an innings minimum.
Yeah.
Like you have to tally to be included in the leaders. They usually say minimum of X amount of innings. So I don't know what that minimum number is.
Well,
he
the
hasn't
problem
reached
is
it.
that the minimum, he actually has hit the minimum. But according to Elias, it has to do with, for them, because Elias does the stats for baseball, it has to do with the fact that he only 3 of his 6 starts has he hit 5 innings.
Right. Like right now, for instance, Rojas is hitting 305. He has not had enough plate appearances, I guess, because 305 right now, you know where that would put him? In all of baseball. Johan Rojas. At 305 right now, he'd be 21st in all of baseball. You know how many hitters in all of baseball are hitting over 300?
22?
22. Now, I don't know how many of the people don't qualify that are hitting over 300.
True.
He is one of them. He is hitting over 300. Now, for instance, how many at-bats does Rojas have this year? Because he's starting to play a little bit more. I mean, he has played essentially every single day for, the last 2 weeks here. Rojas this year, how many at-bats does Rojas have? Let's see. He has 59 at-bats this year.
Right.
So in the MLB, like, what is the number of at-bats or plate appearances, I guess is what they generally go by. But 59, yeah, he's not close to the guy on the list that is at number 20 is George Springer, who has 85 at-bats. 85 is the lowest number that I see on the list of the top 50 at ESPN.com. So he probably needs another couple weeks to kind of catch up to those guys. But in 59 at-bats, he's hitting 305. George Springer is hitting 306. Or 306. He is 20th. Rojas would be the next guy. So he's one of only 22 regulars right now. Because right now, Rojas is a regular, right? He plays every single day.
Yeah, so the rule according to Major League Baseball is a batter must record at least 3.1 plate appearances per scheduled league game. So it's not even just on the number of at-bats that he has. It's does he have enough at-bats compared to how many games the Phillies have played?
Yeah. Well, he's getting there. He's not quite there yet. But my point
Give him
is
a couple weeks.
He's the only Philly regular hitting over 300. Now, you do have Trey Turner, who is at 298 right now. So he's right there. Turner is on the precipice, and he has 119 at bats for the Phillies so far. He's
Really?
the only. By the way, Bryson Stott at 286. He is 34th in all of baseball in batting average. And Nick Castellanos at 278. He also is in the top 50. He is number 49.
Well, if I can bundle these together,
It's a sad list where a guy hitting
Yeah.
two in the 270s is one of the top 50 batting averages in baseball. Jeez.
But if I could bundle this together here, right? Let me ask you, Mike. Do you think that Walker, with what he has done so far, combined with Rojas, what he has done, do those guys potentially have enough value to make a trade with them?
I entered this year thinking there was no shot to trade Walker.
But now,
Minimal. You'd have to take the money. You'd probably have to pay them to take him.
gotcha.
And that might get you I don't know, can I get like the guy they got yesterday, just a 30-year-old relief pitcher. Do they get someone who is a little better than that? I just don't see that, man. I could be wrong. I don't know. I mean, he's pitched pretty well. Honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this. He's pitched pretty well. Now, that's not fair to say I can't believe I'm saying this because when he got to Philly 2 years ago, he was their best pitcher for 2 months. I mean,
Right.
The whole summer. In June and July, Taijuan Walker was the best guy they had.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe he just had a bad year last year. Maybe something was wrong
Well,
with him.
the injury he had last year definitely affected him. He said that, that coming back from that injury, he just wasn't the same guy last year.
Yeah, he was so bad last year. I don't know. I don't know that he has value to get you anything to help this team. I could be wrong. What is your first month grade for the Phillies? I see people sending their grades in 609 403 0973. Charlie from Violin gives the Phillies a C+ for the first month of the season. Mike, I would give the Phillies a C-, and just like every one of my report cards for my entire life, I would say they are not living up to their potential. Matt and Kate May, very clever out of you. I like that one. So people in the C+, C- range, what grade would you give the Phillies for the first month of the season? Let us know. We're taking the Phillies report card. Coming up, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, will join me at 3 o'clock as we do on Fridays. A little Mike and Bob baseball chat. Adam Caplan, football at 4 today. You out there, here's the way to connect. Text board open all throughout the show. 609 403 0973. It's the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. This is 97.3 ESPN. All right, happy hour Friday, everybody. What are we having on a Friday? It's supposed to be like 85 degrees out there. I wouldn't know. I'm stuck inside here, a building with no windows. I feel like a prisoner. Phillies tonight taking on the Diamondbacks. Every time they play Arizona, you think about the failure of the 2023 NLCS. 17-13 in the month of April, 0-1 in the month of May, 17-14 overall. Where is this baseball team? Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is on his way to Citizens Bank Park for this matchup. Jesus Luzardo goes tonight, by the way. What would your grade be for the month of April, first month of baseball for the Philadelphia Phillies? Mike, it seems like you and I, we talk about all the issues and the problems. We try to figure them all out. They're 17-14, 3 games over 500. What's the grade for the first month of the season?
I'd give them a solid C, Mike. Average. Average at best. Not a C plus, a solid C. I mean, 3 games above 500. They've certainly presented themselves as a team capable of contending for a playoff spot, but, average at best. So I would give them a C, not a C plus, a C for the first 31 games of the season.
All right, well, I think a lot of people are on board with that. I want to get your thoughts. I'm looking at the big picture. They lose the game last night, but big picture takeaway from you. Has Taijuan Walker done enough for a desperate team to call the Phillies and say, hey, you're not using him anymore? Is he available?
Yeah, possibly at this point, but I think – if the Phillies were to make a deal for Taijuan Walker right now, they kind of be. I think teams calling now would also be dealing. The Phillies wouldn't be dealing from strength right now because other teams know, hey, the Phillies have a surplus of starters. Maybe we could swoop in there and get Taijuan Walker for less than he's worth. Also, again, I like having that depth in the starting rotation. I think you're going to need 8, 9. Maybe 10 pitches to get through the season. So at this point in the season, in May 2nd, I'm not ready to sort of trade Taijuan Walker. Now, July 2nd, July 30th, July 31st, right before the trade deadline, absolutely I'm listening on Taijuan Walker. But as for now, May 2nd, I'm going to keep Taijuan Walker in the bullpen in sort of a break glass in case of emergency situation.
Yeah, I'm wondering if anybody has any interest. That one's perplexing to me at all. I mean, I can't believe we're talking about a guy who's been somewhat serviceable. 2.54 ERA, 6 starts for Taijuan Walker last night. The Phillies lose that game. But it wasn't really Walker, Mike. It's the defense last night that let them down. Last night was Bryce Harper. The other night it's, Rojas makes a bonehead play. Turner's been a problem at shortstop at times, although he's been better this year. When you look at this team defensively, is that something we're not talking enough about?
Yeah, I mean it's been moving to the forefront recently, and it's been a narrative in past seasons, right? That they were a poor defensive team, and the narrative has always been that to overcome their shortcomings. This is a team that is going to slug, that is going to hit home runs, that they are going to hit their way, that they are going to solve their shortcomings by being a strong offensive team. The issue is they're having problems defensively, and although they've hit some home runs this week, they haven't slugged the way that we envisioned them slugging coming into the season. And, Mike, when I look at the big picture, one of the things that I got my eye on that I don't think a lot of people have talked about is right now you've got 10 teams in the National League that I would count as playoff contenders. So you've got 10 teams for 6 spots. You've got the Mets, the Phillies. I count the Braves in there still. In the Central, you've got the Cubs. You've got the Reds. Are the Reds going to last? I don't know. Tito Francona is manager. He has a good track record. They've got a lot of young talent. You've got the Brewers still hanging around. And then you've got the 4 teams in the West. Dodgers, Giants, Arizona, Padres. All 4, I think, are good teams. Maybe the Giants are 4th out of that group. But you've got 10 teams for 6 spots. And I think going into the season, we just kind of assumed that the Phillies would either win the division or grab a wild card spot without any issues. That might not be the case as this season progresses. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. And the reason why this series, although it's the first weekend of May, is a big one because you're playing a team that you might be fighting for a playoff spot with.
Yeah, and you take a look at this National League, you're right. I mean, you got battles everywhere. That wild card is going to be very tense. You know, you're looking at the West right now, and I guess that starts evening out. The Padres, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Diamondbacks, they're all going to have to start playing each other a lot, and I would imagine that starts to do, separate the wild card there. But, the way the Phillies are going right now, if they're just playing 17, 14, 3 games over 500 baseball, they need to get on their streak going here. So you're right. A series like this against another team that's 17 and 14 becomes very important. And, last night you're not saying, hey, you got to sweep a team like the Nationals every single time. But that's a winnable game last night that you don't get because of pretty much a little league ground ball you don't make the play on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, Mike, that I think going into the season, we all kind of assumed that, hey, if you finish in the top 2 of the National League East, you're going to make the playoffs. That second-place team, and maybe even that third-place team in the National League East is going to get that wild card spot. That's not the case, I don't think. That might not be the case as the season plays out, and I just think it's something to keep an eye on because I don't think enough fans are focusing on that. And I get it's early. I get it's only May 2nd. But fans might, wake up on the beaches of, Wildwood or Avalon or Harbor in late August and say, well, what do you mean the Phillies are on the outside looking in? So it's just something to keep an eye on going forward. And with the balanced schedule, you don't see these teams as much as you used to. So anytime you're matched up against a team, Diamondbacks have the same record as the Phillies. These are big games, in the long run and could decide your playoff fate.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. All right, month into the season, I want to kind of take your temperature on a couple of the stories. Alec Boehm, last year in the month of April, was like an MVP candidate for the most part. I mean, had over 35 ribbies. You're looking at a guy who has had no home runs so far this year. He's moved all the way from the 8th spot in the order. Do you have any anticipation? Now, he has come around a little bit. He did have a ribby in the game last night. Is there anticipation that Boehm will round into form, or is this a guy that the league has figured out a little bit?
I think he's going to round into form. I think he's going to be better than he's been so far this season. I mean, obviously got off to an absolutely horrendous start. The problem is, Mike, what is his form? I find it absolutely astounding that he has hit 0 home runs so far this season, and we're on May 2nd. I find that hard to believe. But when you look back at his career, Mike, we've kind of waited for him to be this guy who's hit 25, 30 home runs a year. Maybe he's not going to be that guy. He's certainly not going to hit 25. If he hits 25 home runs this year, the Phillies are going to make the playoffs because that means he's going to be on fire the rest of the season, and that'll be good for the Phillies. But, yeah, I expect Boehm to be better, but how good is Alex Boehm? And the fact that he's hit 0 home runs so far this season, Mike, Johan Rojas has hit a home run. The fact that Boehm has not hit a home run, I just find that mind-boggling to a degree.
Yeah, it's not even like the home run. I think, one thing with Boehm, too, is his lack of power throughout his career has been perplexing to people. Here's a guy, he's in the home run derby, for God's sakes, and he hits 15 to 18 homers. You're looking for, 22 to 25, and you say, hey, man, that would be, great to have him. But the lack of power, he has been a guy who has generally hit well with runners in scoring position. He drove in a ton of runs. You're not getting any production like that from him right now. Another guy I want to get your take on is, are you comfortable now? Are we at the point where Bryson Stott is the leadoff man? And now Topper was asked about him being the leadoff man against lefties the night before. He said, yeah, we'll give him a chance, but I still got to see Sosa. So it doesn't sound like they're willing to commit to him as an everyday guy yet.
Yeah, I think they still want to get Sosa at bats against tough lefties, so they don't want to commit to making Bryson Stott, up there being the leadoff guy no matter who's on the mound. I've got to see more out of Bryson Stott. I didn't like the way he started the season. I think he shifted to the leadoff spot. He's played with more energy. He's hit better in that spot. He looks like more alive out on the baseball field. But again, judgment out on Stott. I've got to see more than him, but trending in the right direction.
All right, yeah, the Stott thing's going to be interesting to see if they're just going to platoon him and he stays at the leadoff spot. All right, after him, is Max Kepler a good enough answer in left field, or are you looking for someone after the first month of the season to say, you know what, I like Kepler, but maybe not every day.
Yeah, I do like Kepler against maybe in a platoon. He'd be on the long side of the platoon, right, because he's left-handed and you face more lefties than righties. So I think you would definitely have an opportunity there. So I do like Max Kepler. I think he has shown more than we've expected the past couple of games. So I think that is a positive for him. So I like that situation right there with Max Kepler being a platoon guy in left field, being the left-handed bat in a platoon, but I don't see the right-handed bat there. So you've only got one half of it. So I like Max Kepler, but we need to get a right-handed bat there to be the other side of that platoon.
Center field, Johan Rojas. Are you sticking with him, or is he back to platooning with Marsh?
Well, I think when Marsh comes back, Marsh is still good. I think you've got to give Marsh another opportunity. You've got to give Marsh another chance. You've got to give him an opportunity to kind of show what he can do, to show that the April that he had, where I don't think he had a base hit in April. We talk about Alec Bohm not having a home run in April. Brandon Marsh hasn't even got a base hit in April. Now he got hurt towards the end of April, but he had about 30 at-bats in the month before he got hurt. So, yeah, I think you're going to see Brandon Marsh, and I think Johan Rojas has had an opportunity to sort of seize that job, and his play has been so inconsistent that he has not taken that, taken the bull by the horn, so to speak. So again, and this is a problem with the Phillies, and why I give them a C. So many of their guys, all the guys you're mentioning, are kind of and not doing what we envisioned them doing when the season started.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you're just kind of wondering and waiting. Is this what they are? And a lot of these guys, we think this is what they are, Mike, because we've seen this group of guys, right? We've seen this crew. I want to get one of the last takes on the offense here from you is JT Realmuto as an offensive contributor. Where do you kind of look at him at this point?
Yeah, shaky at best, right? The thing that concerns me about JT is he's caught a lot of innings, 33, 34 years old. Are we seeing the decline of him as far as being a standout offensive catcher? I still think he's pretty good defensively behind the plate, does a great job calling games. Zach Wheeler the other night saying, the only time I shook off JT in my start, the guy hit a home run. Why did I shake off JT? He knows what he's doing back there. But I would say this, offensively, he worries me. How much are we going to get out of JT? Now, we're going to get a hot streak here or there, but I don't think he's going to be the offensive force that he's been in the past, and that's another issue this team faces. They've got guys getting into their 30s, getting into their mid-30s, and that's when a decline happens sometimes. So I put JT in that category. And, Mike, the more I answer these questions, I mean, boy, are the Phillies any good at all? We get who's playing well for them,
And Mike, we haven't even got to one of the worst bullpens in baseball yet.
We haven't even talked about the bullpen yet, or Jordan Romano, or Kirkring, or this or that. So, boy, sounds bleak. We got to change the subject here.
Well, listen, I do want to get your opinion on what happens here. Ranger Suarez is up. I imagine Taijuan Walker goes to the bullpen. But after that, yesterday, Ranger was asked would he go to the bullpen because we all know that Painter is looming. Now, Painter pitched last night in Clearwater. Gave up a couple home runs, actually, but overall pitched pretty well in the game. So that decision looms. The Phillies are going to have a surplus here at some point. That whole thing will be fascinating. But as we look ahead, Walker going to the bullpen, is that what's going to happen here next?
Yeah, I believe Walker will go to the bullpen, and then they'll have a very interesting roster move to make Sunday morning. They're kind of hemmed in the bullpen with what they've got there. They've only got two players in the bullpen, Kirkring and Tanner Banks, with options to go to the minor leagues. If they were to get rid of Carlos Hernandez, who topped 100 miles an hour last night and pitched pretty well, they would have to DFA him. So it'll be an interesting take to see what roster move they make to get Ranger Suarez on the roster. one of the things, Mike, that I know fans see it. I know the media asked him yesterday. Ranger Suarez is not going to the bullpen on May 2nd, June 2nd, July 2nd, or August 2nd. He might go to the bullpen on September 2nd. He might go to the bullpen on October 2nd. But this is a guy who, for 16 starts last year, was one of the best pitchers in baseball. This is a guy who is in his free agent year. He's 27 years old. Scott Boras is his agent. If he pitches well as a starting pitcher, he can make himself $150 million. That's generational money. He is not going to pitch in the bullpen. Maybe in the playoffs he will, but he is going to be a starting pitcher the rest of this season.
Yeah, that one's interesting. I know being the free agent as well looms. Now, do you view Suarez as a trade chip?
Interesting you say that, because he is in the last year of his contract, right? If the Phillies were to fall out of it, which I don't think they are, he'd be a guy you might deal for prospects, right? So I don't see him as a trade chip because I think, the Phillies are going to be in contention. They're going to be a playoff team, I believe. And with Ranger Suarez there, he's a main part of that mix. So I do not see them trading Ranger Suarez. If they do trade Ranger Suarez, it means May, June, and July were a disaster for the Phillies.
Well, he might be the one guy that gets you something in return that you need. We're talking about a bullpen that lacks. We're talking about an offense that lacks. Got to give something to get, right?
That's an awfully good player to get up, and I don't know how much you would get back, Mike, considering the fact that, teams know that he's basically a rental, right? He's in the last year of his contract, so I don't know what you would get back. Maybe you trade him for a good reliever who's in another part, who is also in the last year of the contract. Maybe you trade him for a right-handed bat who's also on the verge of becoming a free agent. I guess that's possible, but I don't see them trading Ranger Suarez. I still think, look, for 16 starts last year, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. I think he can regain that form and help the Phillies, accomplish their goals this season.
Well, their pitching's been very good. Their bullpen has not. Their lineup very inconsistent. Mike says a C, and a lot of people texting in with grades that are in that C range for the most part as well. Mike McGarry's on his way to Citizens Bank Park, where the Phillies will take on the Diamondbacks tonight. He'll get a chance to see Jesus Luzardo. That's another topic we could get into Monday, is right now the Phillies have a surplus of starters. What do they do with all these starters? Boy, we'll see how well Ranger throws on Sunday. That'll spark conversation. We'll talk about that when Mike joins me right here Monday on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Mike.
All right, have a good weekend, Mike. We'll see you down the road. Thank you.
There he goes. Mike McGarry's on his way to Citizens Bank Park tonight. Jesus Luzardo starts for the Phillies as they try to get this series with the Diamondbacks off on the right. Note, they're going up against Merrill Kelly. Brandon Pfaadt will throw the game on Saturday. Then a left-hander, Eduardo Rodriguez, will throw on Sunday against Ranger Suarez. So two lefties in the game there. I'll keep my eye on the Phillies lineup. When that comes out, I'll get it to you right here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, though, what does Ruben Amaro Jr., former, of course, Phillies general manager, say about the problem with the Phillies starting pitching surplus? You'll hear that coming up next.
What an amazing problem to have. I mean, think about all the other teams that can't even. I mean, look at the Dodgers. They can't even field more than 2 or 3 starters right now, healthy.
They've used 11 starters, Ruben, so far. 11 starters.
Yeah,
the Phillies have used 13 pitchers total.
I mean, it's a tremendous problem to have. If you have good starting pitching, every single night you have a chance to win the baseball game.
Yeah, the starting pitching is the one reason why, if you're a Phillies fan, you think that you've got a shot to do anything this season. It's the one reason so far, 1 month in, you have hope. You got to hope that that starting pitching is good enough to carry you all the way to the playoffs and beyond, because so far your offense lacks consistency. The bullpen is an abomination. It is just not major league level right now. But an amazing problem to have with the surplus. The question I have is, can the surplus of starting pitching translate into help fixing your bullpen? And I'm not sure that you can just transfer starters and make them quality relievers. We'll talk about that coming up next. Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad set to join me here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN, because the Phillies do have a surplus of starting pitching. But what will they do with it? That's coming up here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Hit the like button. Hit the repost button. Do what you got to do to be a part of the show. Text in right now your thoughts on the Phillies. Grade the first month of the season. 609-403-0973 on the text board. 609-403-0973 on the text board. Your thoughts on the Phils. Plus, next hour, what a former NFL GM thinks about the Eagles draft class. You're not going to want to miss what he has to say coming up at 3:30 today. But on the other side, a Phillies report card for April and the conundrum that is coming for the Phillies. And can their starting staff help their bullpen? Coming up. All right, Friday edition, Sports Bash Live. First month of April, 17-13. 4 games over 500. Good team, bad team, mediocre team. That record would say good, not great, fair, unfair. I know this is Philly. They want people to be more critical. Team's good, not great. Not average, not bad. They're good. Is that fair, unfair? Bob Wankel crossing broad. This team has a lot of questions after the first month of the season, though. And I know it seems like, man, you guys talk about the Phillies and all this stuff. Every week there's something different to discuss, though. And they're about to have something else enter the equation starting Sunday. We'll get into that as well. Bob Wankel joins me from Crossing Broad, who's covered the Phillies for a long time. What's going on, Bob?
Mike, what's up, man? How are you?
You were a big topic of conversation the other night when Chase Petty made his Major League debut.
Oh, good, yeah. I bet I was. Who was in that conversation?
Did you ever look back at that moment? Mike McGarry was there. Maybe Kevin Minnick.
Listen, you know what? Congrats, Chase Petty. I'm very excited for him. I wish him no ill will. I hope he's very successful major leaguer. Do I look back on that moment where we pitched to him?
For context, Bob was coaching Triton High School at the time. Petty comes to the plate. They have a lead. First base is open. The rest is history. The ball is still going.
All I can tell you about that was that the guy on the mound had handled him the first few times he was up. He had some awkward swings. And the kid on deck was a Carpenter Cup player. I mean, come on. It wasn't like I had some bum in the hole there. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't remember how the context. I guess the fact we were at the Coaches versus Cancer, different people who had pitched there, and there were some murmurs that he might, whatever. But
yeah,
regardless, maybe he could help the Phillies bullpen right now, which is a whole other thing. But I want to get, before we look at anything else, Suarez is going to pitch on Sunday. Walker goes to the bullpen. Has Walker given himself any value because of the 6 starts he's made?
I mean, first and foremost, Taijuan Walker did an excellent job for this team, pretty much by any standard. If there was one knock on his numbers, it was that he just didn't really pitch very deeply into games. A little over 28 innings and 6 starts. But if you look at where he finished up and a 2.54 ERA, even a 1.34 WHIP, it's not all-star stuff, but pretty functional. I don't think anybody in their right mind would have had him with those numbers after 6 starts. That all being said, I think if he were to make another 6 starts, I'm not sure that we'd be talking about him in quite the same way. Does he have a use for them? I think so. I think he goes to the bullpen and is a guy that you hope can give you some competitive innings, multiple inning appearances when need be, whether that be you're up a handful of runs or down a handful of runs, and he can kind of keep you in a game. I think that there's always a place for someone like that. And, he's at least proven himself to be a usable major league pitcher a year after that did not look to be the case.
Well, 6 games, 2.54 ERA. You mentioned he doesn't get deep into games. Even if he had any value, he has $18 million due next year as well. That's where I think the problem becomes, because I think teams would have taken a flyer on him if he was a free agent at the end of this year.
Yeah, coming off a year where he had a 7+ ERA, I think that he might have gotten a 1-year deal worth maybe a couple million just because of the track record. And, you could explain the variety of things that happened to him, or if you were his agent, you could do this and say, look, we know that he can give you 150 innings and be a number 5 type starter and eat some innings for you. I think that I still would be surprised if there was much of a trade market for him. Could the Phillies move on from him as they get to the deadline? Maybe, just because there's such a logjam, or seemingly a logjam in this moment. Things have a way of changing very quickly. But what would you get in return? How much of that salary would you have to eat? Would you be better off just having him as a long man in the option and starting rotation depth? Those are all questions that sort of remain to be seen, and will certainly probably shake out in the next 3 months.
Well, then that adds the next wrinkle as the next couple months. Andrew Painter through last night. As each day goes by, he is now getting closer and closer, and when they call him up, he is a starting pitcher. Ranger was asked if he would go to the bullpen. He didn't sound thrilled. Sound like he tried to give a diplomatic answer that I would. He is a free agent. Is he the trade chip?
Maybe. It's possible. Look, if you get into a situation where Ranger Suarez comes back and he's throwing the ball well and Andrew Painter progresses as expected and he is what we think he is and very early on, and then you have Taijuan Walker as that depth piece, where does Ranger Suarez fit into this thing? I think there are probably two pieces of this to consider. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that Ranger Suarez would be excited or even willing to be a reliever at this point in the season. I think the read here is no, it's a contract year. By the way, I hired Scott Boras to be my agent. I want to prove that I'm a starting pitcher. So from his perspective, he wants and is going to get that opportunity. If the Phillies are trying to win a World Series this year, though, I do wonder, is subtracting a valuable starting pitcher or a guy that you could in time swing into the bullpen as you get towards October, does that make you better? What are you getting in return? Is it a big right-handed bat? Is it somebody that can make a difference for you in return? Then maybe you consider that. But I think finding equivalent value, assuming that Suarez throws the ball well, is going to be difficult to do in season.
That's right. So if you said my best trade chip to improve this everyday team is Ranger Suarez, what is the level of player you would get back in return? Like yesterday, I don't think this would be an offer, but I saw a betting thing, and I'll play along. I'll sprinkle, right? Cedric Mullins, the leader to trade for him was Philadelphia, plus 750. He's a free agent. Rangers a free agent. The problem with Cedric Mullins is he's left-handed, so he doesn't really fix anything. But is that level of player something you would say, okay, he's a free agent. We don't have any intention of signing him. We think we have enough starting pitching depth. We need an offensive player. That's the flip.
That would be an interesting trade. Like if everything is what we think it is right now come the end of July, where you know what this team's deficiencies are and they are the same, and all of the health holds up, and you have this surplus of arms, and you still have a deficiency in center field, and Cedric Mullins is playing the way that he is right now, not the guy that he was last season when he was a disappointment and looked like a change of scenery candidate, then I think maybe that would be a trade that you could consider. I will say this, in fairness to Johan Rojas, who you know I'm not a big believer in, and we saw some suspect defense this week. We saw suspect judgment on the bases last night.
No Rojas in the lineup tonight, by the way.
I think that Rob will probably take the high road when he's asked about it before the game today. I do not think that was coincidental that you're seeing Cal Stevenson tonight. That was insane. It was an insane decision, and it's the type of thing, even as like a former high school coach, it would make you want to rip your hair out. What are we doing? There is no upside in trying to take that third base and possibly making the final out of the game at third base. So I don't believe in I just don't. And I'm sure people listening to this are going, hey, listen, OPS is north of 700. We know he has the capability defensively. He's hitting over 300. What do you mean you're not a believer in Johan Rojas? Give this guy some credit.
No, I think more people are on your side.
All right, I'm just trying to be fair. I mean, I think if we're being real about this, we know that
you're right.
This is probably the absolute best that he's going to give you offensively. I would be stunned if we're talking a month from now and we're not talking about a guy that's hitting sub 250. He may prove me wrong, though.
I would agree. No, I think most people would say, look, you still need to upgrade center field. Marsh is going to be back. Is this going to be a platoon? Or has Rojas at least earned to say, no, Marsh, you haven't done anything. He's playing every day.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but just given where Marsh was, I think that Johan Rojas has probably done enough to at least get some additional run against right-handed pitching.
That's how bad Marsh has been.
That's how bad he's been. You also need to treat this like a hard reset for Marsh, though, and give him an opportunity at some point. So I think you play Rojas' hot hand until that expires, which in my opinion, likely will, at which point you probably go back into more of a pure platoon situation.
Okay, I want to get into the next phase here. I know we're 1 month in. Suarez is the first piece. Bob Wankel crossing broads with me. He's going to enter the rotation. Walker is now looking like he'll go and be a long man here. Painter looms. But even if Painter doesn't loom, that's 5 pitchers for 4 spots. Ranger is the obvious one. Would they ever consider, if Nola is not pitching well, that and I don't think so I don't want to, but we debated on this with some people over the last couple of days. I don't see any scenario that they say, hey, Aaron Nola, you're the guy that's not starting in a playoff round. You're going to the bullpen. It almost has to be Ranger. But then if you throw Painter into the mix, what if Painter is so good, you have to then make another decision. What are you going to do with him? I don't see them using him out of the bullpen either.
If you had a best of 5 series or best of 3 series right now,
which is the first wild card, would
you have Aaron Nola in that rotation right now?
You can't.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, for me, it'd be Wheeler, Luzardo, and Sanchez. So if you're asking me, is that a possibility as we get to October if they were to make the playoffs? I think so. I do. I think the Phillies are beyond the, hey, we owe it to a guy, or he's making this, or he's a franchise.
Yeah, but that's okay. So I hear what you're saying, but this is okay. If you're in a 3-game series and he's the 4th guy, he just might not pitch in that series. He would be in the bullpen in like break glass in case of emergency, but doesn't have a real role, right?
Yeah, I kind of think that that's what it would be right now. And I think that the Phillies, if everything were to continue this way, might go that way. I mean, it would be very hard. And I know Christopher Sanchez threw 2 innings against the Mets and wasn't quite as sharp as usual the other night, but he survived it. And I thought it was encouraging, his outing. I don't know that you could make a justification to start Aaron Nola over those 3 guys. And I don't think that the Phillies would try to. Now, that being said, if we're talking about like an in-season logjam of starting rotation arms, like I see no scenario where Aaron Nola is bumped to the bullpen, unless we're talking about it's mid-June, he's made 13 starts, he has an ERA in the 7s, it's a disaster. Like,
right?
Maybe then if it's just so crazy bad. But I highly doubt it. And I highly doubt it would get to that point either.
Right. His last start kind of indicated that, he's kind of settled in a little bit here. Okay, find my bearings. But it almost looks like in every incarnation of these pitching rotations, he is the 5th guy. And they will have to make that decision at some point. And that's, okay, Painter. How could you put Painter ahead of him? I think we all anticipate Painter's going to come up here and not be a dud, right?
They better hope so. I know that they have a surplus of starting pitching. That's the one thing I feel great about with this team. So I think they could survive Andrew Painter not being overly impressive right away. But I think the expectations are such that you want to see, is he going to be Paul Skeens from day one? Maybe not, but he better be in the neighborhood.
Right. Well, that's the example that I gave, Bob, is that let's say he has that kind of impact where he goes 8-1 with an ERA at 2.10 and he's just electric when he throws, and you're like, how do you not throw this guy? He's still the 5th guy, you would think. Yeah. At that point, because here's where the question becomes, and this is where I want to get your take on. From my experience, I always ask, what's your bounce back? These starting pitchers, they're not used to throwing 1 inning on Tuesday and then the manager saying, can you throw 1 inning again on Wednesday? And they're like, no, I haven't done that ever. So you can't just say throw Nola in the bullpen. He might not have the build or the arm that says I can throw 1 inning on Tuesday and then use me again on Wednesday. So that's where these starters – bouncing back and forth from a reliever to a starter is not as simple as it sounds.
No, not at all. I mean, I think that there's a certain type of pitcher that is better equipped to do it. And I do think that if you get into the playoff situation, unless Ranger Suarez comes out and is very clearly the 2nd or 3rd best arm in this rotation, I think it's more likely
the thing we threw out yesterday was, last year in the first half, he was 9-1 with a 193. All right, now I don't know that he matches that, but if he's anywhere close to that pitcher, you now have another decision to make, which goes back to like this logjam of pitching that they're going to have to make decisions, and those decisions might have to be none of these guys profile as relievers other than Ranger.
If you were to say out of all these guys, and Aaron Nola is in the rotation come a playoff situation, who are the 2 guys that I think would probably be best equipped to handle it? It's Suarez, because we've seen it, and it's probably then Christopher Sanchez. I think that those are the 2 guys from a stuff standpoint, and that's all part of it. Like, being an effective starting pitcher, you need 4 or 5 pitches. You need to have a deep mix. It's a different art form than coming in a high leverage spot and getting key outs in tight situations. And I think that Sanchez is equipped to do it from a stuff standpoint. That would be my hunch. Like, I don't see a scenario where anybody but Sanchez or Suarez would be the guys that get converted from starter to bullpen piece in October.
Right. I mean, and then you're talking, I guess the question is, are they high leverage bullpen guys? I mean, all of a sudden, are you going from, hey, I've never pitched in the bullpen. You know, we think of Suarez, that he had that run. He threw 2 games out of the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
2 in that playoff series. It wasn't like they had him throwing on back-to-back days. He happened to close 1 game. And we've seen elite starting pitchers do that in the past. They do it once, game 7 of a World Series, a closeout moment, because the team knows they don't have to ask him to pitch again the next day. So you're saying to Sanchez or Suarez, hey, man, you're going to the bullpen, both of you, and now you're pitching in the 8th and 9th inning of these games. That's a big ask.
It is a big ask, and it's about having the right makeup. And I think that's part of the reason that everybody always touts Suarez as an option, because of we've all heard this a million times, but Rob always says the slow heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing, though, goes for Zach Eflin. If we would have had a conversation in May of 22 about Zach Eflin closing out playoff games, I would have said, Mike, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, there's no world in which Zach Eflin's going to be pitching the 9th inning of postseason games. And he was pretty effective at it. So I think, certainly these guys can do it. I think they're physically capable of doing it, but it's about taking the entire package of what a pitcher is, how he prepares, and really kind of knowing their body and their mindset. To me, just bringing Aaron Nola into a runners on first and second, 1 out. You've got Fernando Tatis Jr. up against the Padres in a game 4. Here comes Aaron Nola. Like, I just don't see that.
Well, especially his propensity to give up a home run.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think it's tough plays.
Option too. And listen, you're only out there 1 inning. You really, your arsenal can kind of get scaled back. We talked the other day about bullpen guys are there for a reason. They generally command 2 pitches. Their 3rd and 4th stuff is not. That's why they're not starters. They get moved to the bullpen because they generally are 2-pitch guys, and you only need to be that guy for 1 inning.
And one thing I will say is, when it comes to Andrew Painter, we've seen high-profile guys come up and pitch in the postseason out of the bullpen, high-profile starters. Wainwright did it for the Cardinals. David Price did it a million years ago for the Rays. Like, we've seen this before.
The only pushback I would have on Painter is the way they're handling him.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree because of the health history, because of the conservative nature with which they've handled him. I don't think that they want to push him that way. And for that reason, I guess I'd be surprised in this moment if that's how it played out. But as you know, the way baseball goes, the fact that and I think this is the appropriate conversation. I think it's the most interesting conversation in this moment, but that conversations like this one where you go, my goodness, look at all these options. What are they going to do? How can they do this? Can very quickly blow up where you say, good thing they had every last one of those guys. They needed them all.
Absolutely. The odd stat we, saw the other day that their 13 pitchers have been the only 13 pitchers they have used all season, no injury issues. Suarez did not start the game season, so they're going to decide on one of these guys to go back. The funny part is you're debating between Carlos Hernandez and Jose Ruiz and thinking, how do you even make a decision between those 2 guys?
It's tough. So Hernandez the other night threw the ball well, threw a lot of strikes, and Rob said after the game that he really felt like that the staff up here was starting to make it click for him. And for that reason, like, if you've done the Rob press conferences over time, like, you can try to read through what he's saying because he almost never gives you anything. To me, that was, we really like the way he's progressing. We're going to keep him up here. I'd be surprised if it were Hernandez. Okay, he loves Ruiz, though, man. He loves Ruiz more than I like my dog. Like, Rob Thompson loves Ruiz. So then you look at from the left side. Well, wait, do we have to have 3 lefties out of our pen?
I think you just said it earlier, or maybe McGarry said it earlier. Kerkering has an option.
Kerkering has an option. Do you want to give him a reset? I don't know if they're going to do that to him, especially so early in the season. And then Banks also has options as well. So you could theoretically take out your 3rd lefty if you wanted to. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it.
Yeah, that will be interesting. And then Marsh will be up. Stevenson is in the lineup tonight, and we both agree on, we think this is more of a, hey, Rojas, you need to realize what you did. Because I can imagine him not even understanding what he did wrong and wondering, like, hey, I got there. Why are you yelling at me? And
I think that's very much the problem. I don't think that Johan Rojas circled second base last night and said, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get this triple for me. I think he just was like, I think I can make it. Yeah. And I don't know that I can't speak for him, but it looked like in the moment that he did not process that taking third there made no sense.
Totally agree. Yep.
You look at the dugout and they're like, yo, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, he pops up and he's all excited. And
yeah, he's, doing all this stuff like, hey, I got a triple.
I don't think that Johan Rojas is a bad guy or a selfish guy or anything like that. I just don't think it always registers the way it needs to for him.
Totally agree with your assessment on that. I don't think he did it thinking I need a triple for me or just didn't know any better. Like, I had an opportunity, I took it. Not like, hey, there's 2 outs, I don't need to be there because I could score on a base hit here.
And I think in your third year in the major league, you expect a guy to get that. I know he's young, but he's not that young, and I think that's part of the frustration with him.
Absolutely. Stott, the other night, Thompson was asked, are you going to give him more opportunities against lefties? He says, I think so, but I got to get Sosa out there. Are they going to continue to platoon their leadoff hitter?
Yeah, I mean, I think for now, the way things are going, I kind of just expect it to continue the way it is. I mean, you have Stott, who's been productive out of leadoff spot, cooled off a little bit here the last couple nights, but and Trey Turner's getting on base. He's not driving the ball with authority in this moment, but he is getting on base quite a bit, and batting average is up around 300. And I think that they just kind of continue to evaluate and see. And it's sort of my hope for them that as the season progresses, they have a solution, a clear-cut solution, rather than going back and forth. But for now, I think they're probably fine with doing that.
All right. Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad, of course, longtime Phillies in baseball here. We go back and forth. Is there anything that you thought I was going to ask you about this team today that I didn't?
Defense,
okay, yeah. I mean, that play last night's a Little League. I mean, you got to make that play.
There's just been a lot of that with this team. They've given up the fourth most unearned runs in baseball this season.
Are you pro making a vibe switch at backup catcher?
I think if you decided that Rafael Marchand was the better option and wanted to show some belief in him and see what he could do at the major league level, pulling the plug on that after 7 games doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So he's been dreadful, though. He has been dreadful.
But I do agree that 7 games just isn't a big enough sample size to say, hey, this guy isn't what we had hoped for.
If you're sitting there in mid-June, end of June, maybe you reevaluate it.
I also think, like last night, I said I think that Marchand will be in the lineup because he hadn't played since the 20th. They're going right back to this thing where they're just rolling Real Muto out there way too much.
One other point I'll make very quickly. I actually give my podcast partner, Anthony Sanfilippo, credit for this one. You have Andrew Painter going to AAA. Probably will benefit Painter to have a veteran like Stubbs catching him and kind of mentoring him as he makes that final step toward the major leagues. That's something else to think about as well.
Good point there. All right, Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, a Friday edition. Little baseball tonight. It's Luzardo and Merrill Kelly, the starter for the Diamondbacks. Thanks, man.
All right, Mike. Talk soon.
All right, he'll be back, of course, here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Phil's lineup is out. Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, Kepler, Real Muto, Bohm, and Cal Stevenson is your 9-hole hitter tonight. He's replacing Rojas, who had that little bit of a blunder last night. I agree 100% with what Bob said. I think that he did not even realize that he made a mistake. I just don't think he knows any better. Really, I don't. I don't think he tried to say, hey, I got to get this triple. I just don't think he knows any better. Coming up on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, you get your baseball text coming in. I see some people heading out some grades. 609-403-0973. Thea says, I give this team a C right now. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's right around that C number. The C number, letter, I would say, grade, would be right about where I would have them. Mike, would you consider using a Walker as a piggyback starter for 1 or even 2 of the starters, have him be prepared to through 2 to 3? Look, I think that's his role now. If you have a starter who has a stinker, the problem with that is being prepared and ready when you don't get used once every other week, maybe. All right, coming up, stick around. A former NFL GM, find out what he thinks about the Eagles draft class. You'll be surprised what he says next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
Howie's been fantastic at is reading the board. And I love when GMs know how to read a board. And, if he thinks he needs to go up and get somebody, he's going. He apparently was in conversation with the Charger at 22 to go get Jihad, and it didn't work out. So he kind of got a little bit fortunate.
Former NFL GM Mike Mayock said that on the Believe in Eagles podcast, talking about why the Eagles have become what they are, is that Howie Roseman will do whatever it takes. He doesn't just sit here and say, well, I have 32nd pick. I got to pick 32. There's a guy that I like. I'm going to go get him. They've done it on many of occasions. Devontae Smith, they moved up to get him. Jordan Davis. Doesn't mean it always works out. Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN. There's so much about this Eagles draft that still intrigues me. It adds, and I love, to what it brings to training camp. The word I love with the Eagles is always, right now during this Roseman era, is competition. They just keep adding competition for training camp. You're not getting handed a job. You got to earn it. And even if you're at the top of the depth chart right now, we're bringing in someone to make you feel like you have to fight for that job. Love it. Here's Mike Mayock, former Raiders general manager, on the Believe in Eagles podcast. He explained why Jihad Campbell ended up dropping in the first round to Philadelphia.
Jihad Campbell had a shoulder problem, and then he had some knee issues that cropped up and had some teams worried. That's the reason he slid, is potential concern about those injuries. But, how he reads the board, this kid is sliding right at him. He moves from 32 to 31, gives up a 5th-round pick, of which he had 4 5th-round picks, and guarantees that he's going to get his guy.
Guarantees that he's going to get his guy. That's the guy. He just said it. He had the injury problems. He saw that it was happening. He starts to plot it. He wants to get his guys. But everybody's wondering, what is this guy? Pass rusher, off-ball linebacker. Here's how Mike Mayock sees it.
This kid is, to me, he plays off the ball linebacker, but he's a really gifted pass rusher. So it doesn't matter if you rush him up the middle in the A gap or you move him outside to defensive end. He's talented. He's got the physical traits to rush the quarterback. He also has the physical traits to drop in coverage, zone. He can play tight ends man to man. Does he have to get better at it? Yeah, but he's got the traits to do it.
Very interesting to hear how, he felt, could he guard the tight end? Yes, he could do that too. So you talk about a guy who he's saying could be a pass rusher, could be an off-ball linebacker, could also be good in coverage. That's something that some of these linebackers come into the league, and you're wondering, can they run with the tight end? Can they be good in coverage? But here's where Mayock really thinks they'll figure it out, is once this guy gets his hands on him.
For a defensive coordinator that's creative, which the Eagles are so fortunate to have, they can do so many things with this kid. I think you can see him all over the field. This kid, to me, is just – I think they're going to have so much fun trying to figure out how and where to play him. And I think as the year goes on, it might start a little slowly, but as the year goes on and they figure out and he figures it out, they're going to have something.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. As the year goes on, remember, let's not look at this kid, I plead with people, and say bust right away, right? Even if he's Nolan Smith his first season. Okay, let's keep that in mind. 2, remember, Cooper DeJean didn't come in and make an impact right away. It took 4, 5, 6 weeks for Cooper really to figure things out. And as he said, it might not start right away. Week 1, let's see if he can do this. Okay. Yes, he can. No, he can't. Let's see if he can do this. There's a lot of things I think the Eagles think in their back pocket they have with this player. But you can't try them all at the same time. And it's based on opponent and what they do well and what they don't do well. And where do you need this guy and where you don't need this guy. So I loved hearing that from Mike Mayock, former Raiders general manager, on Campbell. Now, let's turn the page over to the safety and get Drew Makuba's thoughts here, because he thinks that Makuba will give this Eagles defense a very interesting ability to be flexible.
Another versatile piece, which Vic Fangio is going to love. Plays both free safety and nickel. So what's cool about that is you got Cooper DeJean, who's the starting nickel, but could also play safety, could also play corner. So between these two guys now, they've got ultimate flexibility and versatility.
Yeah, you could. I don't think they'll do this, but just think about the mad scientist Vic Fangio back there with Cooper DeJean and a guy who's played corner, slot corner, and safety, and him say, you know what? Let's change the look up this week. It's like a boxer who decides that he's going to go southpaw all of a sudden, and the boxer's been training for a right-handed boxer and an orthodox guy, and then boom, he comes out there and the guy flips on him, and you're like, wait, what? I mean, we're going all Rocky here that he decides to go southpaw on the guy. But could you imagine 1 week Vic Fangio is just like, hey, you know what? We're playing against who are we playing? Kansas City this week. They wouldn't do it against Kansas City. Detroit. Okay, we're playing Detroit. And let's just throw Cooper at safety and move Makuba to the slot and try to see if that messes them up. I mean, I don't think that would happen, but it's just funny to kind of hear Mayock talk about the flexibility that Andrew Makuba brings to them. Now, earlier today, Mac McWilliams talked. The Eagles have rookie camp. He said that the Eagles used him outside today. So I think that's another guy. I told you when they drafted him, I really like that pick, and he had been primarily kind of a slot guy at UCF, but I thought his best snaps were on the outside. If you watch a lot of Mac McWilliams tape, he went toe-to-toe with the best of the best. We're talking Travis Hunter, no problem. Matthew Golden, no problem. This is a player, dude, and I'm interested to see where the Eagles kind of end up featuring him at. Do they look at him as, hey, we could play him in nickel slot and use Cooper on the outside from time to time? Or do they just say, you're going to go to the outside and battle with those guys over there? May the best man win. Kaylee Ringo, Adoree Jackson, Mac McWilliams, throw you guys all into the pot of stew. But then there's the other guy, Ty Robinson. Everybody seems to like this guy. What does Mike Mayock think about why this guy might make sense for Philadelphia?
Ty Robinson, he's like 6'5", 290. He's the prototypical what is called a 5 technique, which is the defensive end in a odd front or a 34 defense, okay? Which is what the Eagles are in their base. The cool thing is he can play that 5 technique, or when you go to a 4-man front to rush the quarterback, he can kick inside and play either defensive tackle.
That's an interesting point about him is he, like Milton Williams, gives you positional versatility across the defensive front. You could kick him to the outside. So I wonder if that's a guy that maybe Philadelphia looks at for some pass rush in that group of guys that are the quote-unquote edge rushers. Your Bryce Huffs, your Jalix Hunts, your Azeez Ojolaris, your Josh Uches. Can they throw Ty Robinson with a man with a hand in the dirt type of player to rush from the edge over there? And now, similar to what they used to do sometimes with like Fletcher Cox, they would kick him out to the outside from time to time. And then they sometimes, they would put Brandon Graham in on the inside there and do some stuff like that, kind of that NASCAR package that they would bring in there. But why did he think that Robinson, a guy that everybody seems to like, fell to the 4th round where Philadelphia ended up taking him here? And does he think that reason will be a problem for the Eagles?
He blows people up. He's strong. He plays with an extra gear. Like his effort and toughness is kind of off the charts. He's a little bit short-armed for a guy that's that big. So he can get stuck a little bit on longer-armed offensive tackles occasionally, but his motor's so good he doesn't stick too long. So I love the motor. I love the production. I think he'll be a great fit.
So we hear this a lot, the short arms. That's a guy who remember, there was a player the Eagles drafted. This is way back. I say way back. I mean, I remember him. It's not like it was in the 70s. But there was a guy by the name of Andy Harmon. He was a little lighter than Ty Robinson. He was 6'4", 270, somewhere in that range. And I was looking him up the other day. He was a 6th-round pick by the Eagles. But he had a couple seasons where he flashed. He had 7 sacks, 11.5 sacks, 9 sacks, 11 sacks. He had a really good run. And when I think of Ty Robinson, I thought back to Andy Harmon, who was this type of player. Interior defensive tackle, smallish, but kicked out and played some defensive end. He was a 6th-round pick in large part because of his size, his small, the length, the arm length and all that stuff. And I thought Ty Robinson, the other day I was doing, reading some stuff and thinking about how could this guy make an impact. And I said, you remember Andy Harmon? Like, could he be that type of player? And when I hear what Mayock has to say about him, effort and toughness, those were the things, effort and toughness, that I thought, man, I remember Andy Harmon. He was just an effort and tough guy, but he was now, I don't know that Ty Robinson's getting double-digit sacks like Andy Harmon did, but Andy Harmon got a lot of sacks because of effort and toughness. He was a motor dude, which was pretty cool. The last guy that Mayock talks about here, and it might not seem like a guy who's going to be all that important right away, but I'm very intrigued about this guy, and that's Drew Kendall, who has been a center generally only. But much like Cam Jurgens, who was a center at Nebraska, he had the positional ability, athletic ability, to move over and be a factor. And remember, Cam Jurgens started at right guard for a full year before he played center. Could Drew Kendall be a factor in that battle there for this Philadelphia Eagles team at training camp?
Drew Kendall, the center from Boston College, his father, Pete, was a first-round pick in like the mid-'90s by the Seahawks and played 14 years in the NFL. He had 37 starts at center. I'm not sure he can play guard, but I know late in the season, the Eagles had a couple injuries at center, had to move a lot of people around. It's nice to have a utility center if you can. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he can make their active 48 and whether or not he can play any guard at all, which would help his case.
Yeah, if he, got into the guard mix, that would be interesting. That would add a guy that just, like I started this conversation with, would add competition to the room. Hey, Tyler Steen, you're the favorite. Last year, we brought in Mekhi Becton. You couldn't hold him off. Now we have Kenyon Green here, but Kenyon Green, you were a first-round pick, a top 15 player, but now we got a guy that we wanted to push you, too. So now you got one guy pushing two guys and trying to make both of those guys better. 609-403-0973. That was Mike Mayock, the former Well, where were they when he was the GM? Were they in Vegas yet? I can't remember.
They were in Vegas.
For like a year, maybe?
Yeah, he was there for his last year and a half. Well, they were in Vegas, but he started with the team when they were moving from Oakland to Vegas.
Yeah, and obviously, he was a guy who, before that, was part of the NFL Network. Was he back on the NFL Network for draft coverage this year? I didn't watch.
He was not, no.
So is he done with doing that?
He's still doing draft coverage stuff, but apparently he's not doing it for the NFL Network. So
yeah, he breaks down the stuff, but I didn't know if he was a part of their.
No, this year coverage. It's currently like Charles Davis, Stanley Jeremiah, Rich Eisen, and I'm trying to remember who the fourth guy is. Off the top of my head, but I'm drawing a blank.
Well, I'll tell you, all of the things that he brought up, the Campbell stuff. I'm very intrigued to see. We heard yesterday Andrew kind of comparing to a Micah Parsons type of use. Mac McWilliams is the guy that I told a lot of people on the day after the draft. I thought that he would be the most interesting player for me. Robinson, I brought up the name Andy Harmon. Somebody texted in, says Andy Harmon was a stud. I loved watching him. He was a 6th-round pick, though, too. Keep that in mind. I mean, he came out of nowhere to become a stud, and a lot of that for Andy was, and I wrote down the words when I heard Mike Mayock say it, effort and toughness. And as soon as he said effort and toughness, it went right back to the guy, Andy Harmon. I mean, that guy was just an effort, man. He was undersized, 275, playing defensive tackle. So that's why I look at Robinson and hear all the, the short arms. He's not quite that big, but he can play inside. And as Mayock said, you can maybe kick him out a little bit. I thought of Andy Harmon. We'll see if he ends up being anywhere close to Andy Harmon. That would be a huge win if you can get an Andy Harmon type of player.
Listen, I think Ty Robinson is way better than his draft position is. As Mayock said, the arm length, people hold that against these guys. To me, I look at the fact that, this is a guy who there were times, Mike, he was getting double teamed and he was still being productive at Nebraska. I mean, you go back to that Colorado game when the Cornhuskers wrecked the Colorado offensive line. And there was a point where Robinson was getting double and triple teamed, and he's still ripping through guys and getting to Shedeur Sanders. And Sanders looking around like, how do I have 3 guys blocking
Well, their
one
offensive
guy?
line was horrible.
But still, that's 300-pound men.
3 really bad offensive linemen. But no, you're right. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. Josh doesn't get my jokes sometimes. It's hard. I was saying that the Colorado offensive line is not very good, and you're trying to justify them by being 300-pound men. They still stink.
It doesn't matter if they stick or not. It matters it means you put 3 guys on one guy.
They're
it
bad.
should slow him down.
They're bad. They got their quarterback drafted in the 5th round. That's how bad they were.
So now you're saying that the unspoken truth of Shedeur Sanders is his offensive line was so bad.
Their offensive line was an atrocity. It made everybody look a lot better when you put tape on against Colorado. All right, coming up, football at 4. Adam Caplan in 14 minutes from now here on the Sports Bash Live. We'll look at the post-draft Eagles depth chart. They drafted 6 players on defense. What does the defensive depth chart look like now? That's coming up in 14 minutes. Happy Hour Friday on the Sports Bash Lives. We gave you the Phillies lineup a while back, and the only difference in the lineup tonight is Rojas is out of the lineup. Cal Stevenson is in the lineup. Now, Bob says he thinks that it's because of the base running blunder from last night, which I agree. My only question would be, would they have done it if there was a left-handed pitcher? Because that would have made them look really dumb.
They would have not done. I think it was very convenient that there was a right-handed pitcher today, number one. Number two, remember Rob Thompson said the other day when he answered the question about Stott, oh, and by the way, I want to get Cal Stevenson some playing time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of knew at some point Cal was getting in the lineup, and I think that probably the conversation that was had with Rojas after the game probably didn't maybe go as productive as they hoped.
Maybe not. He did say, I'm going to talk to him after the game. No, he said, I'm going to talk to him tomorrow.
Right.
So
maybe when they had the conversation today.
I just feel like, and listen, I've been down these conversations where guy does something, right? And then you try to explain to them that, yes, while you succeeded, to get to the next level, you can't be okay with the fact that, hey, you hit a fly ball and it went 290 feet and the right fielder just happened to miss it. That's not a positive. That's an out in the next level of the higher quality of game
under normal circumstances.
Right. So don't be all happy that, hey, I hit a double in this situation because it technically is a double for the guy, right? So he hits a triple here and he thinks it went well. And Rob Thompson's saying, hey, you shouldn't have done that. And did Rojas be like, well, why not? He just doesn't get it. And did they get down to, hey, look, I'm going to sit you tonight just so, you kind of understand what you did it was not helpful to the team last night. But because even if he scores there, it's still only 4-3.
Right.
So you're still down a run. So being on third base did nothing to help them last night. So he's the only one not in the lineup. Real Muto's back in the lineup. Now, somebody texted in earlier. Would I have hit for Marchand in the ninth? It's not like JT Realmuto's been great. So it's like we know the whole story. You're off today. We talked about it yesterday. Realmuto has played every day since the 20th. The sneaker versus the spike day. I think JT was on a sneaker day yesterday. He was not playing in that game last night. So, I don't think it's an egregious mistake. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is here, which you can get on all podcasting platforms and on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. If you're watching on today's YouTube channel, at Mike Gill Show, hit the subscribe and like button. You can comment on the YouTube channel and on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Adam Caplan joins us now from Inside the Birds and Inside the Birds podcast on a Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday. And Adam, the Eagles rookies talking today at training camp, or I should say rookie mini camp, not training camp, obviously. So it's good to see the guys back out on the field. And we got a lot of questions. We looked at the offensive depth chart on Monday, but they drafted 6 players on defense and lost multiple players on their defense. So their defensive depth chart will definitely have some intriguing decisions when they do get to training camp.
Yeah, in fact, Mike, Jeff Mosher and I dropped the show, the one you're talking about. We call it the post-draft depth chart on defense. We did offense Monday. We did defense, I believe, yesterday morning. And now we can extrapolate a little bit. And we'll talk about the undrafted free agents next week because we've got some really good stuff on those guys. But let's stick with what we know. We're going to start on the defensive line. And it's interesting. Moro Joma's going to start next to Jalen Carter. But understanding starting means technically, Mike, who's out there for the first play on defense. Well, what it really means in football terms is this is the guy who's going to play the majority of the snaps. But does that mean for Jomo 50%, 70%, 80%? We don't know that yet. That's something that they'll work through. We've talked about Ty Robinson. I heard your show earlier, Mike. This is the guy that a lot of people around the National Football League were excited about for the draft. He's kind of a tweener. As we understand it, he's really not a great fit for a 43 front. He's a way better fit for a 34, but he's got an odd body. He's got a tweener's body, so he doesn't really fit in certain systems, and that hurt him to go in the first 3 rounds. But he's got a great first-step quickness. He's very talented. His measurables are odd in that, Mike, he's 6'6", but he doesn't have long arms, and that's another thing that hurt him. But, man, the guy's tape is really good. I know the Eagles are really excited to have him. And if all goes well, he'll be the main backup to Moro Ojomo. Now, they'll take a look at their off-season program, see if everything looks good. If it doesn't, they could bring a veteran into training camp. That's definitely real if they don't like what they see, but they want to see what they have first. Thomas Booker is a backup to Jordan Davis at the nose, and Jalen Carter is the 3 technique and can play anywhere you want him to play, but he's just a phenomenal football player. And now they have Byron Young. By the way, Mike, Byron Young was a former third-round pick who the Raiders, they didn't like him. They cut him after 1 season. That's not good, but the Eagles want to see him in their off-season program, get a look at him, because he's not had an off-season with them. And then Gabe Hall, who they gave a pretty big practice squad contract to, Mike, he's got incredible measurables, but there's a reason why he was not drafted. It was an effort issue with him, I'm told, and you got a really good coaching staff. Clint Hurt, one of the best D-line coaches in football. As I said when they signed him, if Clint Hurt can't reach this kid, forget about it. He'll probably never play in the NFL. And he was cut, and then no one claimed him off waivers and put him on the practice squad, and now he's back, Mike. So the hope is that he can contribute. And I'm telling you, there's an opportunity here, Mike, for him. There really is. They're not super deep on the defensive line.
Well, let's take a look. You talk about that defensive line. You look at that depth chart. We know Carter. They picked up the 5th-year option on Jordan Davis. We talked a little bit more with Jeff on Wednesday about Jordan Davis and Andrew yesterday. Moro Ojomo, everybody just assumes there. You mentioned Booker, Robinson, Byron Young, and Gabe Hall. That the possibility does exist, and that they do it a couple. Get a veteran guy to kind of get in there. So that will be one depth chart part that we're going to look at training camp and really keep an eye on. Is okay. The 4th, 5th, 6th, those guys, they might not sound like a big role, but in this defense, the depth is a big deal.
Yeah, Mike, you always, as a coaching staff, want a rotation, right? You want to have 4 or 5 guys because they run an odd man front. So their so-called outside linebackers are not linebackers; they're edge rushers. That's what Vic Fangio calls them, and that's why we're going to separate them. So yeah, the rotation is going to be Carter, Davis, Ojomo. Well, it's really Carter, Ojomo, and Davis. Then the second unit, you're looking at Booker and Robinson, and that's So last year, Mike, the way we understood it, they had their list together of veteran defensive tackles. They made a decision which some around the league thought was a little questionable, but you got to give Howie credit. And the general manager made the right choice. They went young at D tackle. They took a small gamble, and it worked out.
Well,
so yeah, that worked for sure.
I'm very intrigued by that. We were talking about yesterday with Andrew. What's his favorite positional battle when we get to camp? We can ask you that at the end of this conversation. But
Sure.
He gave one, I gave one. Everybody seems to have a
already
different
know
because
what it
there's
is.
a lot, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot, including this next one, edge rusher. They brought in, 2 free agents. They have one guy who they signed as a free agent last year who made no impact. They drafted a guy last year. This position is all over the place.
Yeah, so a favorite of our show really since they drafted. In fact, it's a pretty good story. I don't know if you know this. So with Jalix Hunt, I called Greg Cosell, who Greg works for us, as you know, as an analyst, and I said, hey, I know you're seeing 200 players, but have you seen Jalix Hunt? He goes, this is a couple weeks before the draft. He goes, what do you know on him, A, and B, do I need to see him? I'm like, you need to see him. We were told he's probably going to go to the third round. And remember, when we bring Greg in, we do primarily Eagle stuff with him, but the stuff we do before the draft is in the entire league. I said, we don't want to be shortchanged here. God forbid he goes in the third round and we don't know about him. So I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I need you to take a look at him if you can. And he goes, I'll get the tape, because he was not in the system because of the small school, but he wound up getting the tape. And he called us. He goes, I'm ready to talk about him. I'm pretty intrigued by him. And we did not know, truth be told, the Eagles would draft him, Mike. But Jalix Hunt was a surprise. Now, you should know, Mike, that he was not supposed to play last season. What do I mean by that? He was a healthy and active week 1. They had no role for him. You don't draft 5 edge rushers. You draft 4 if all 4 are healthy. And then, as you know, Bryce Huff struggled, then had the wrist surgery. He had a bad wrist, by the way, and then he had the surgery. BG was playing out of his mind, then got hurt, and Hunt had to start. Like he went from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2. I mean, he had to start, Mike. And he was so intriguing, and he's got great length. It's been a great story of development, and what we hear, he's a sponge. He wants to get better and all that. He's got a great attitude. I listened to your show earlier this week. I'm kind of with you. I think it's a little bit much to ask him to be a full-time starter, but let him earn it. He may work with the ones, but let's see what the guys who they brought in. Let's see the edge rushers that they brought in free agency, like Ojulari, who the Eagles know very well. He's had good games against the Eagles. Josh Uche is trying to revive his career. Remember, Ojulari on a 1-year deal. Uche on a 1-year deal. Huff got benched when he came back. They had no use for him. So this is actually my favorite competition. Then there's a guy like Antoine Powell Rowland, who is a guy that's got some upside. What I'm told on him is, Mike, I know people want to go, how the heck could a guy at 25 sacks over 2 seasons drop to the 6th?
Yeah.
One scout said to me, I thought this was hilarious. I said, could I use this? He goes, go ahead. Just don't let him know who you talk to. He said he's allergic to the run, has no interest in doing it. That'll hurt you, by the way. Not that you want to edge rushers you can't not play the run when you're out there. You can't just rush the passer. You got to make some attempt to stop the run and be an edge setter when you're asked to. He didn't really do it. It's weird. He's got good weight, but he doesn't have great measurables. He's a fascinating player, though. Very explosive. He's a guy. Look, I know you typically don't keep 6 edge rushers. Nolan Smith come back from the torn triceps, so we expect him to be limited in their offseason program if he gets on the field at all. We mentioned Bryce Huff, who's going to be on the team. They're not eating $17 million. O'Shawn Mathis is there, formerly the Rams, who's back for his second year, first full offseason. And KJ Henry was a draftee for the Commanders, who's highly unlikely to make the team. And Patrick Johnson's back. He only plays in specials, Mike. He's a really good special teams player. But the cool thing is, Mike, to move this along, they're going to have a competition. Hunt will be challenged in training camp. I would put my odds on him because he's got the most physical presence, but he's also very raw and young. And remember, Mike, he's not played his football career totally at edge. Remember, he was a safety to start his college career.
Yep, that one I think you said might be the one that you're most looking forward to. I think you kind of slipped that one in there too. We're talking with Adam Caplan, Football at 4 here, looking at the post-depth chart on defense post-draft, I should say, where we've added 6 new players now to this Philadelphia depth chart, and inside linebacker has 2 additions to the depth chart. You've got Bond, you've got Dean, who's coming back from an injury here. You got Campbell. Trotter was drafted last year. Smile Monday was also drafted here. So how's this depth chart going to play out?
And Mike, they're really light there now.
They were light there last year.
I know, and they got away with it, man. Boy, did they get it!
How many conversations, Adam, did we have where we're saying this is the worst linebacking core in the league?
Well, hang on. So here's the deal with Zach Bond. Howie Roseman didn't know. Even though Vic Fangio made the call to move him to inside backer, he didn't know he'd be a superstar.
Oh, I know.
I listen. By the way, really good baseball talk was with Bob Wankel. You and him the last hour.
Yep. Thanks.
There's things that happen that you can't explain. Like Jeff and I have done the show for 8 years. I would say, other than Mailata coming, obviously he was a rugby player, never played football in his life. I'd probably say Bond's the biggest surprise of many with the Eagles over the years. So we know Bond's going to be a starter. That's not in question. Now, by the way, we should mention this because your listeners will love this interview. We just dropped it, I believe. We did a great interview with Aaron Borgman, who was a assistant athletic trainer for the Eagles for a number of years, and Andy Reid and Rick Burkholder, the former Eagles head athletic trainer, brought him to Kansas City. And Aaron broke down what it's like and how you come back from shoulder labrum surgery. But we also talked about which is the Jihad Campbell injury, Mike, which he's coming back from, and the timeline and what happens with that. And we talked about other players coming back from injuries, just what develops there. So we encourage people to listen to that. And then Jeff did this great interview. We're going to give, for our Patreon members, got the full interview. We give a sample of it, which is on. We just put it on YouTube on Pod with Jeff Nixon, the offensive coordinator from Syracuse, who, by the way, worked under Chip Kelly as an assistant. He's been a long-time running backs coach in the league, Coach Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley with the Giants. And Nixon does a great job of explaining Kyle McCord. It is a really interesting interview, really. And Greg Cosell, by the way, also broke him down for us. So check those out on our platforms. But getting back to inside backer, Mike, the only question for Campbell, who they're going to start him off when he's allowed to practice at inside backer. Then he'll do edge. Both will happen, Mike. And I think over time you have to be patient. What Greg Cosell taught us is what a scout who Jeff and I know really well said, because he had what's called an over-the-top grade. He was a cross-checker. He said Campbell, as explosive as he can be as an edge rusher, is not as instinctive. It's all tape-based. This is not an opinion. It's what the tape tells you. He said he's not always sure. He's a little bit hesitant sometimes, but when he sees it correctly, that's when he looks explosive. So that's why there's an inconsistency. He's new to inside backer, Mike. When he plays inside backer for the Eagles, people have to be patient. So I like what Mike Mayock said. I heard the clip that you had. I agree with Mike here. Vic Fangio could do wonders with this guy because he's so explosive as a pass rusher, and he's got great energy. Then you got Trot Jr., who I know behind the scenes, we reported this last year, was doing really well. Mondon, and then Dallas Gant. So they're a little bit light. They could use another one. That's one where it wouldn't surprise us at all if they sign a veteran by their veteran camp in June or sign one by training camp, just to have a veteran minimum guy, just to have depth. But look, they're going to continue to look at Trotter, Mondon, and that's that. And the Dean's not going to be ready for week 1 because that's a major injury. And Aaron Borgman did tell us that it's a longer rehab than ACL. But the Eagles expect him to play, by midseason, but you can't expect him to be what he was before the injury.
All right, we're talking with Adam Caplan, looking at the Eagles depth chart. As you know, I mean, we did offense on Tuesday's appearance,
Yep.
And that one's pretty settled, other than maybe right guard and what happens at tight end and that third receiver. But defense, every position, we got questions. I mean,
Yep.
You look at corner in that room. Andrew said this competition is his favorite. Quinyon Mitchell, Adoree Jackson. Well, Mitchell, we know. Adoree Jackson, Kaylee Ringo, Mac McWilliams. What do they do with him? Eli Ricks, because today McWilliams said they played him on the outside at rookie camp. Now, that obviously could change. But This room here, a couple years ago, there was like 9 names in this cornerback field. It's pared down a bit.
Yeah, and the other Mac, they used to have Mac McCain, didn't work out very well at corner. So, but this one they have higher expectations for. So
Mac McCain was part of when Howie was making trades, and every trade he got back some corner.
Yeah, it didn't work. But this one, what we were told is the Eagles are going to look at him as an inside and outside corner. Now, the reason why a lot of teams told us they see him more as a nickel defender than cornerback, because his arm length is really short, Mike. Think about if you had him playing on the outside, if he plays against Mike Evans. Mike Evans' wingspan is probably a half a foot, if not longer, than Mac McWilliams. That's a problem. So right now, Mike, outside corner, Quinyon Mitchell starts, obviously. Opposite him is either Dory Jackson or Keely Ringo. That's a battle in training camp. Eli Ricks, who the staff's not real big on, and Tyree Castro Fields, another former 49ers draft pick. Now, could they bring in another veteran? Sure. A veteran minimum guy? Sure. This is another one. Let's see what Mac McWilliams does in their off-season program. And let's see when Dory Jackson starts practicing later this month. Let's see what he looks like. So, yeah, they're probably a guy short. But, again, the season doesn't start till September. We try to warn people that. Now, at nickel, it's DeJean, McWilliams probably, and then Parry Nickerson, who's played nickel for most of his career. Vic knows him from Miami. He was with them last season. And then finally, Mike, at safety, Blankenship, and then the other stories, who's going to start opposite Blankenship? I'd put heavy money on Makuba, but Sidney Brown's more of a box player. Makuba's a post safety. That means a free safety. And then Tristan McCollum, Lewis Seen is more of a box safety. And then Andre Sam, who was with them last year, he'll struggle to make the football team. He didn't make it last year. He was on the practice squad. So they're okay there. They don't really need anybody. Is Makuba, is he going to be ready to go? I would expect him to win that, but they got to have the battle first.
You think they bring in a veteran player at safety just to add someone to kind of add competition to that group? There's not a lot of experience in that room.
But, Mike, two things. They've shown the willingness. They did it at D-tackle last year, which was a minor surprise. And at safety, Mike, they have Blankenship starts. It's not a battle. But they want to take – this is a big year for Sidney Brown. He's healthy. Makuba is a second-round pick. By the way, Mike, just so folks know, second-round picks do not sit unless they're not ready. We told people this with Quinyon Mitchell this time last year when people were all worried about him starting with the third team. We told him it's nonsense. Don't pay attention to it. If he's ready, he'll start. Makuba will start if he's ready as long as he looks right. You don't draft second-rounders. That is a starter round, Mike.
Yeah.
The first 3 rounds are starter rounds. Now, Sidney Brown, what happened there? A, the ACL injury. B, Mike, let's call it like it is. He's more of a box safety. He doesn't have the great coverage skills that you need. So now Lewis Seen is intriguing. He's healthy. There's nothing wrong with him. I was told by a source close to the situation that Minnesota, as we actually reported this at the time, Brian Flores, a defensive coordinator, didn't really like him as a player. He just didn't see a fit. Now, the guy was a first-round pick. You could basically say, should he have been? I don't know, but he suffered a compound fracture. He's fine. Let's see what he does. Now, do they need another safety? Not really, Mike. What's the point? Now, if Brown doesn't look right, if he doesn't perform in the offseason program, if Makuba's not ready, different story. But I don't see the Eagles thinking, oh boy, geez, we don't expect Brown to perform. We don't think Makuba will be ready. That's not the way teams look at it.
All right, Adam, that's going to be fun. The defensive battles at training camp, they are legitimate. I mean, there are a lot. We there's 4 starters, but you got to throw Warren Burks in there too as another guy. I mean, he started in the Super Bowl. He was a very important player. They got to replace not only Dean, but the guy who replaced Dean in the Super Bowl, Burke. So you really need 2 guys possibly for the at least first couple of weeks there. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Eagles rookies are in Philly this weekend. And, of course, we'll have more on Football at 4. And check out the Inside the Birds podcast for more post-draft coverage and all the Eagles off-season workouts right here on Football at 4. All right, Adam. Appreciate you, pal.
Thank you.
All right, Adam Caplan, everybody. Good stuff from him, as always, on this Happy Hour Friday. I got a Happy Hour Friday couple picks for you guys that we'll be throwing in the mix here. Somebody just texted a random I like the picture from BC and Bowers Beach. Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale from Dogfish in Milton, Delaware, available all over. Yeah, I've seen this one a couple of places here. I got to I haven't tried that one yet. I've heard about it. The Juicy Pale Ale Grateful Dead. That's a Dogfish Head. I actually, for Happy Hour Friday, I actually have a Dogfish Head Happy Hour Friday throw in that I'm going to put in there later on today as well. BC and Bowers Beach. What are you guys having out there on Happy Hour? It's like 85 degrees. Got to give me something today, right? Shout out to something today. And one of my picks is actually a Dogfish Head. I'll tell you what that one is a little bit later because I got to get all my stuff put together for a good happy hour. Now, summertime's here. Happy Hour Fridays are back with the warm weather in the summer. Nice, crisp, cold one on a Friday for the Phillies tonight. Lineup's out. Nuggets are on the way. We're going to grill a couple nuggets here. Nick Earnshaw and Nick's Nuggets are on the way. Stick around. That's next. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Happy Hour Friday, everybody. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. What are you having on a Happy Hour Friday? Let me know, 609-403-0973. I got some good ones for you coming up a little bit later on tonight as we get ready for the Friday weekend. The vibes are feeling good. Time for today's Nuggets. Nick's Nuggets are brought to you by The Hub, gear that works as hard as you do. Nick Earnshaw is the host of the Shift podcast, and he is producer of The Locker Room, weekends on 97.3 ESPN. We'll dive into his Nuggets today in just a second. Phillies lineup is out. It is Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, Kepler, Realmuto, Bohm, and Cal Stevenson hits ninth tonight. Jesus Luzardo gets the start for the Phillies against Merrill Kelly. Kelly, by the way, 3-1 with a 4.41 ERA against Luzardo, who's 3-0 with a 1.73 ERA for the Philadelphia Phillies. And that is a look at the lineup tonight for the Phillies against the Diamondbacks. One other quick note. Eagles did have a rookie minicamp today, or rookie something or another. So they were on the field at the NovaCare Complex today. So there you go. All right, couple notes there. Now it's time for the Nuggets. Nick Earnshaw is here as we get into today's Knicks Nuggets on a Happy Hour Friday. What are we discussing today there, Nuggets? What's going on, man?
What's going on, Mike? Tough one last night for the Titans overall, and I got to answer your first question of the day, the report card of the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way, and that'll be nugget number one, my report card for the Phillies, their letter grade. I don't think there's any way that I can't give them more than a C. I'm going to give them a straight C. No C plus, no C minus, just a C. It's just been blah to start the season. I mean, the starting pitching has been pretty good. You've gotten some good starts out of Luzardo. He's been a bright spot. The bullpen just has not figured it out for the most part to start the season. The bats have been wildly inconsistent. You've gotten a good start from Schwarber. Other guys have been off to slow starts, Alec Bohm, etc. I mean, the guy doesn't have a home run, and we're now in the month of May. So overall, listen, they have a winning record. Great, fine. I can't give them more than a C. They've just been okay. It's been underwhelming. I just have not liked what I've seen for the most part. It's just been all right. So, and Romano is another one. Kepler as well. Like, those guys haven't really impressed at all for the most part. So I'm going to go C. That's my grade for the Phillies.
Yeah, C, I think sounds fair. And you can, they're 17-13 in the month. They were 4 games over 500. Not great. I said, look, the team's been good, not great. That's what it is so far. It's good but disappointing, I think.
Yeah, I think that's where you have to be, because you didn't make a ton of changes in the offseason. The guys who are here, they're expecting to, have a good start to the season, right? You've paid a lot of money for these players, the Trey Turners of the world, the Castellanos of the world. Harper's been a little underwhelming as well. It just has been an underwhelming month and a start to a year where it's like there's World Series expectations. You've gone backwards for the past couple of years in the postseason. And the bullpen, you thought, all right, they should be fine in the bullpen. That's turned out to be an issue. So you've gone backwards there. The outfield's been a problem. Brandon Marsh has taken a step back. Left field, Kepler's been okay. Trey Turner hasn't been great. Bohm still hasn't shown any type of power at all. He's been very underwhelming. JT Realmuto's been underwhelming. A lot of guys have been underwhelming in the start of April with Aaron Nola. He was underwhelming to start the month as well. So it's just been very underwhelming overall across the board. Now, they've gotten on base. They've done some decent things. Runners in scoring position, still a problem. But overall, it hasn't been too impressive, even though they're 17-13.
Yeah, listen, they have holes in the lineup, big holes in the bullpen. Their pitching is what's keeping their starting pitching. It's what has them 4 games over 500. If they had the pitching that everybody else had with this lineup and this bullpen, they'd be in trouble. But their elite pitching puts them in contention to compete every single night. They're very rarely down 7-1, 8-0. They're always within striking distance where we only have to have a big offensive inning, one inning or 2 innings, because their pitching keeps the games close. And I don't know that that's a great recipe for long-term, a long run of success in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the power numbers just haven't felt the same this year. It feel like they haven't hit a ton of home runs either. That's, I think, part of it. And you're totally right. The pitching has been the bright spot, the starting pitching specifically. And Luzardo, he has been the brightest spot, I feel like, for the most part. Now, obviously Wheeler's had some good starts, etc. But Luzardo's been fantastic to start the year. You just want to keep him healthy. He has been huge for this team, and he's going to be huge going forward for the Phillies into the postseason, the rest of the year, et cetera, et cetera. If they didn't have this starting pitching, they might be 13-17. That it might be flipped. That in the month of April, they might have been 13-17 because this lineup has been so disappointing. I mean, you have so many, and the reason they've been in games and they've hit decently is because they have talented players in that lineup. The talent can only get them so far. They got to get hot at some point.
Hey, it's hitting season, man. Let's see if
We're
it
getting
starts in the month. It's 85 degrees tonight now. We'll see if it starts tonight or starts in the month of May, where, the ball carries a little bit better. How many of the balls that were hit in the month of April do we look and say, hey, in the month of May or June, those balls go out, or, that kind of stuff. It's April baseball is a different animal. It is. It's I don't put a lot of stock into April baseball. We've seen, I remember a couple of years ago, Pittsburgh, like, oh my God, they were in the wild card and they were the worst. They ended up being like the worst team in baseball here. So there's so much that will now start to, dissipate, spread, division games start to matter, start to match up a little bit more like those West teams. There's 4 of them out there that are all really good. Well, once they start to play each other, those teams start to separate and things kind of tighten up. And, April is just a small sample size.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right, let's move along. Nugget number 2. This is a bright spot. This is exciting news for the Philadelphia Phillies. Andrew Painter's next start will be at AAA Lehigh Valley. Oh, Mike, we're getting closer to seeing a debut of Andrew Painter, one of the most highly touted prospects in a while in this organization, one of the most highly touted prospects across baseball. It will be this Thursday. He threw 11 1/3 innings in 4 starts with low A, the low A team with the Philadelphia Phillies in Clearwater. Yep. And listen, I'm excited about this. They're bringing him right up to AAA. They want to get him rolling. They want to see him against better competition in AAA. I'm excited for this. This is a big start for Andrew Painter in AAA, and it's just inching closer, Mike, to seeing his debut at some point this year. They're ramping up that process.
Yeah, and listen, it's inevitable to me that he will be up here. He is one of the best arms in all of baseball, not just the Phillies' best arm. He is widely regarded as the best pitching prospect in baseball. He's got an elite fastball, 12-6 curveball. He mixes in a slider. Back in spring training, he was working on a changeup with Cole Hamels. He's been dominating down at the AAA level. Although if you looked at his numbers and you were like, this guy's dominating, I mean, ERA 3.97. He threw 11 innings, 12 strikeouts. He only walked 1, so that's a big number there. His whip is 0.97, 1 walk, and that's a good thing because a lot of these guys that come back from Tommy John surgery, the command isn't there. They have velocity, but a lot of times they just don't have the command yet. Well, the 1 walk is showing that he's got that down. Now, Bob Wankel brought this up earlier. He'll go to AAA, and he gets to work with Garrett Stubbs, who is a major league level catcher, to kind of work with him. He'll have a veteran catcher to now throw to, and that should now get him ready to take that next step, which is hopefully sometime in early to mid-July to be a part of the Phillies rotation, which then would set up another very interesting decision for the Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is going to be fun. To see his growth. Listen, he's 22 years old. The guy stands at 6'7". In case you didn't know, Andrew Painter is 6'7" tall. That's a monster on the mound. That's like a Randy Johnson level 6. Like he was what, 6'10"? He's 6'7". So I mean, he's a monster on the mound. I'm excited about him. 22 years of age, was drafted in 2021. Starting in AAA on Thursday. This is a big deal to have Painter pitching in AAA. They're ramping him back up. That is going to be huge. Listen, he's got an insane fastball. He's got really good control. His slider's good. I'm excited to see his curveball and that continue to develop as well, Mike. But this is a player they drafted to be an ace in the rotation, and they have a lot of high expectation. He is the 7th ranked prospect on the MLB pipeline, 7th in all of baseball. That's I would say that's pretty good for the most part. That's a lot of high praise. Now, listen, we've seen guys come up. Don Brown being one of the most notable prospects in Phillies history over the past 20 years, and he fell flat on his face after a couple of years, right? Like it didn't pan out. He had that one good year, and that was really it. So you have a lot of expectations on this kid, but he is one of the top prospects in all of baseball.
Yep, and listen, the Phillies have had a couple of number one prospects in baseball. Remember J.P. Crawford, who was a shortstop, and he got traded in the deal for Segura. So they've had number one prospects that have not made it. This one, I think, will end up making it. He is a pitcher. They tend to, be able to make the transition a little bit better than hitters do. And overall, the impact that he will make, I think, will be big. The question is, you don't need pitching. Like, that's the thing. It's not like I'm saying, hey, you don't need this guy, don't use him. It's where does he fit in, and what does that mean for the rest of the rotation?
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up, Mike, because Jim Salisbury was on the Phillies show podcast, and he made an interesting remark regarding Ranger Suarez and Andrew Painter in what is going to happen the rest of the season. Take a listen to this.
If Ranger does not seize this opportunity, there's going to be a guy named Andrew Painter who's going to be here in 2 months. And there could be a shuffling resulting from his ascension if he pitches well. So you always got to keep producing or you get pushed out. This is an opportunity for Ranger, and he has to deliver. He has to deliver for a lot of reasons. The 2025 Phillies need him. He's also going into his free agent winter. A lot of little subplots here.
All right.
Coincides with everything. The Ranger coming back and starting this Sunday coincides with all the Painter stuff. What are they going to do? They have an abundance of pitching. We know that. They have plenty of starting pitching, and you talked about it earlier. Taijuan Walker pitched well last night. I mean, he gave him a chance to win. He was fine. I have no problem with the way Walker pitched last night. I thought he was fine last night, and he hasn't been that bad all year. He had the one bad inning a couple of games ago. So I'm okay with how Walker's pitched, but it all coincides with each other because they have Andrew Painter waiting in the wings, and they're ready to bring him right up. So if Ranger does not perform well, could he be up even sooner? That is a question.
I don't think so. They've been pretty steadfast at mid-July. He's got the arm problems. I don't think they want to rush him, and there's no need for them to rush him. They got, right now, Walker's going to the bullpen most likely.
Yep.
And Suarez is in there. The 5 guys you got, I don't see any of them outside of an injury, all of a sudden just not being effective. And then even if one does get hurt, you slide Walker back into that spot. So I don't think Painter comes up any earlier. I think he'll take. Now, the one interesting thing here is I think they said he had about 130 innings limit for the season. How many of those innings do they want to use up? He's only thrown 11 so far. But how many more of those innings do they want to use up at the AAA level? And would they consider using him in the bullpen and just say, hey, we're just going to keep using you for like 2 innings here, 2 innings there? Or do they say, we're going to put you right into the starting rotation? That'll be something else that I think we got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, do you stagger him, right? Like, could you start him a few games and then towards the end of the year, maybe have a Taijuan Walker be a long man when he starts as well and kind of piggyback off of each other? I don't know. That's not too many innings to pitch, and I don't know how much they want to waste that down in AAA, right? They want to get him up to the big club this season, and they want to utilize his strengths up here with the big club. I could see him turning into like a rookie early career David Price when 2008 Tampa Bay Rays how they used him out of the bullpen a little bit. They could maybe go that route, I guess, with him, with the innings limit.
I don't see, and listen, I could be way off on this, but the way they've been kind of bringing him along slowly, I don't see them using him out of the bullpen because generally, if you're a bullpen guy, you've got to pitch back-to-back days. Now, they might say you're in the bullpen, but we're only going to use you one inning here, not on back-to-back days. That kind of handcuffs your bullpen then. If you say, hey, he's available tonight, but he's not available tomorrow night. I mean, coming back after an arm injury for a 22-year-old kid who's never pitched out of the bullpen, I can't imagine they say, hey, you're going to make the transition to be a guy that pitches in the bullpen. I could be wrong. They might say, hey, listen, you've been pitching 2 and 3 innings at a time in the minors. That's what you're going to do here. You're going to come in the 7th, pitch the 7th, 8th, and 9th, or pitch the 8th and the 9th, and then you're done for 2, something like that. We'll see, because generally he's been throwing in about the 40 pitch, is the high mark. I think he threw 42 pitches last night. So 42 pitches has been, and that was in 4 innings last night. So he threw in about 10 pitches an inning there, which is pretty good. He's a big strikeout pitcher. So I don't know. I'm very intrigued at this weapon that they have that they can deploy, how they're going to do it. But I will say this. I think Suarez is definitively the odd man out of the rotation because I don't think they put Aaron Nola in the bullpen.
Nope, no way. I can't see them putting Nola in the bullpen at all. It just wouldn't make sense. I mean, he's your horse. You paid him a lot of money. You're not putting Aaron Nola in the bullpen. I'm sorry. Ranger will be the odd man out. They already have the 2 lefties. They signed them both. They traded for Luzardo. They signed Sanchez. Ranger is the guy to be the odd man out. Now, what they could do with Painter is they could also just go the Strasburg route and just shut him down completely. Doesn't matter where they're at. They're making a playoff run, whatever, and just shut him down. We'll wait for next year. He gave us some good innings this year. We have plenty of pitching. Let's go into the postseason. We're fine.
It's a possibility, and I think there would be a complete anarchy if that happened. Like if this guy came up here, had the impact that Strasburg did, I said, hey, let's say he's like a guy like Paul Skeens, and he's dominant in like 3 months of baseball, and you're like, this guy has to pitch, and the Phillies are like, nope, we're shutting him down. You would have anarchy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like last year when Paul Skeens pitched 8 innings of no-hit baseball and they pulled him, people were freaking out that they pulled him out of the game. If Andrew Painter was to come up and do something similar, people would lose their minds. We'd be losing our minds the next day following that game, whenever, if he were to do something what Paul Skeens did last year.
Yeah, that would not go over well if he pitched that well and then they just didn't use him. So I don't know.
Could you imagine? Yeah, like could you imagine?
I think they said 130 is the number that they're going to kind of look at. So,
I mean, could you imagine pulling him out of a no-hitter or something? This town, this area would lose their collective minds if he got pulled out in the 8th inning. I mean, people across baseball and baseball fans lost their minds last year for Skeens. Oh, this area would lose it if Andrew Painter got pulled. All right, moving along, nugget number 3. I want a quick nugget number 3 because I want to get to nugget number 4. Last night, Johan Rojas. I mean, he is so all over the place. And we talked about his baseball IQ over the course of the past month as well. That was part of our discussions surrounding Johan Rojas. And I had to talk about this today on the Nuggets. There's no need to run to third base yesterday. And the funny part was that the first pitch that Marshawn saw, he flew out. And so they after the challenge, everything, they took a look at it. Well, Johan Rojas' baseball IQ needs to develop a little bit more. I mean, my goodness. You're a meaningless run. Stop at second base. A single gets you home anyway. I mean, that was bad baseball in the 9th inning. And he was waiting for everyone to give him praise for hitting a triple in the bottom of the 9th last night with 2 outs. Could have gotten thrown out at third. Just not smart baseball at all by Johan Rojas.
No, it's not. And look, I've been saying this for a while. His baseball IQ is pretty low. I think you see that when he makes mistakes in center field. Sometimes he overruns or makes the wrong throw. You practice cutoff stuff. Last night I had a baseball practice, and for 2 hours we threw the ball to the cutoff man. That's all we did for about 2 hours last night. Hey, the ball's hit to you. Throw the ball to the cutoff man. Why do I got to do this for 2 hours? Because muscle memory. That's how it works. So now you got to throw the ball to the damn cutoff man. Rojas probably never had muscle memory drills to throw the ball to the cutoff man because he airmails the guy, doesn't know where to throw. Guys pick up bases. His baseball IQ is low.
Yeah. And last night on the base pass, it was very evident. Because I'm sitting there, I'm watching, I'm like, what on earth is he running the third base for? There's no reason to run the third base on something like that.
One of the things we talked about with Bob, it's not because he does it because he wants a triple for himself. He just doesn't know any better.
No, it's not. It was not a selfish play in his eyes, right? Like he was, it's the baseball IQ thing. I have no words for it. He just didn't know. Like he thought he was great. He thought he was hustling the third, making a hustle play to get the third base, to get that run, to cut the lead down. That's what I believe was going through his head.
Baseball IQ is a hard. It's I don't want to say it's not a teachable thing, but it's hard.
It's instinctual.
You either have that intuition or instinct, or you do not. And if you don't have it, it's a hard thing for you to grasp. And some of these guys are just oozing with talent, but they just don't understand what to do with their talent. And there is Rojas.
The guy's been hitting the baseball well. The bunting's got to stop. We got to figure a couple of things out. We got to get Johan Rojas be a little bit more of a polished baseball player. That's the essence of nugget number 3. All right, final nugget of the day. Nugget number 4, 4-pack on a happy hour Friday today. All right, so Sixers are out, Flyers are out. Which one are you more locked into right now? If you're locked in at all, Mike, NBA playoffs or NHL playoffs? Are any of them giving you any interest at the moment?
Sadly, no. I just, the Sixers season was such an abomination that I didn't even, get a chance to, dive into it. And it just got me so disconnected with basketball. I did flip into the end of the Knicks game last night. I watched a little bit of that. Brunson, a dog, just comes up, hits the 3, bang, knocks out the Pistons. I wanted the Pistons to win that series, but last night my Bet365 play of the day was the Knicks, because I just kind of had a feeling that everyone was going to go Pistons because they were at home and the way the night before went, and bang. So I know there's been great. Rye's been talking about it for Rye or Sigh, how great these NBA playoffs have been. The hockey, I haven't seen a puck drop. I haven't seen a frame. I haven't seen anything. I don't even know.
Watching. Toronto won last night.
I couldn't even tell you the 16 teams that made the playoffs.
Listen, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Craig Berube's team, they made it last night. So that was an exciting game. That was an exciting finish last night.
The hockey playoffs are exciting every year. This isn't about it's boring. What are you thinking? This is you've got to pick, you got to pick stuff here. What am I watching? How much, do I want to subject my girlfriend to have to watch hockey? She's not I got her into baseball a little bit here. She's into the Phillies now. She was really into the Sixers, but the Sixers have kind of let her down, so I think she lost a little bit there.
Yeah.
Now, she was not a baseball fan. She's kind of become a little bit of a baseball, so she's in on the base. I can't subject. I actually said to her today, you know why? Because Sports Rise this morning, it's the anniversary of the 5 overtime game where Primo scored the goal. Do you remember that? You weren't born yet, probably.
I wasn't alive, but I know about it, yeah.
So today was the anniversary of that game, and they did a whole thing. It's been 25 years since that 5 overtime game. I remember it vividly. I was in West Virginia. I watched the 5 overtimes at 5 different bars. We just kept changing bars because the game just kept going and going. We're like, all right, we'll go to the next place. Well, anyway, I said to her, in the entire time that we've been dating, which is since 2016, 2017, 8 years or something, the Flyers have never given us a playoff series. Nothing. I mean, they had the one in the COVID year. That didn't mean anything. I was like,
brutal.
When the Flyers make the playoffs and we get into some hockey playoffs, you're going to like hockey. And she was like, oh, God.
Here we go. That's great. All right. 4-pack of nuggets for you today, Mike Gill. By the way, Josh and I will be filling in for the Schweiner tomorrow. Then we got a full youth movement on Sunday for filling in for the Schweiner. Full youth movement. I'll be in double duty this weekend. Same with Danny Ryan as well. Me and Josh will be on tomorrow.
All right. Well, there you go. There's the Nuggets for today. Check him out tomorrow and Sunday in the locker room. Nick's Nuggets are brought to you by the Hub, gear that works as hard as you do. All right, Nick. Appreciate it, man.
All right, I'll talk to you guys.
All right, there you go. There's the Nuggets for this Friday edition of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Nick's Nuggets, as always, here on the Sports Bash. All right, coming up. Rojas is a guy that I defend a lot because I think people just like to blast him. He's an easy target. He's baseball IQ low. He's the only guy on the team hitting over 300. The only guy on the team. And listen, hitting 300 in today's game, that's an accomplishment. Rojas is over 300. If he qualified, he would be the 25th highest batting average in all of baseball. He is just maddening because of the mistakes that he makes. But as you see, when they've played him more and more and more every single day, he keeps producing. Just like he did in 2023 when they originally brought him up. They just played him every day. Guy hit like 320. All right. Another hour of the Sports Bash coming up. Our Friday predictions, 5 of them. Next, Sports Bash. All right, 5 o'clock, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. It's a happy hour Friday. What do you have it on a happy hour Friday? Well, I got some picks for you a little later. Text yours in, 609-403-0973. Summertime's here. Nice day out there. Tell me what you're having this weekend for Phil's Diamondbacks. That game tonight, the lineup, if you're watching on YouTube, is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. You can, of course, be a part of the show multiple ways. If you're watching on YouTube, you can always comment on the YouTube channel. If you're watching on the X platform, you can comment on X. If you're listening on the radio, you can hit us up on the text board, 609-403-0973. If you're listening on the mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City, you can message us right through the app on your phone. It is today's edition of Rye or Sigh, a Friday edition. We'll have a little fun. We'll have a little lighthearted chat. We'll get into some topics. We'll hit them all right now here on the Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday, everybody. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? Hey, as you know, listeners can't see what I'm doing, but we always used to do this. The Phillies used to do this. Has this been extinct?
Yeah, I think every year you come up with something a little different, right?
Yeah, I guess, unless it's dancing on my own. But I think that's finally retired.
It's probably retired. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
they got to get back to the playoff first.
Yeah, seriously, that's not a given. So, all right, we'll start with the Phils, and there's a lot of different fun and crazy, surprising stats that I found. But I'll start with this one, something a little bit out of the box, which is stolen bases. Now, do you know where the Phillies rank currently in Major League Baseball for stolen bases? Any guess? Any idea?
If I was just a guess, I would think they are probably in a good spot. I mean, Rojas steals bases, Turner steals bases. Maybe not as good. I know Real Muto steals some bases for a catcher. He's on my fantasy. I actually released him, but he was stealing bases for me. That was the one reason I was keeping him. He's a catcher who steals a little bit of bases. So, I mean, maybe in like the middle of the pack.
They're actually top 10. They're 8th in Major League Baseball in stolen bases with 30. And I believe I forgot to copy this over to my notes, but I believe they're not that far off from, top 2, number 1 in all of Major League Baseball. So they have 30. They're a top 10 team. And do you have any idea where they rank with OBP?
They're number 3 in on-base percentage.
I saw 5th in all of Major League Baseball, maybe 3 in the National League.
Maybe they dropped after the last couple. I saw this stat third in baseball earlier in the week, so they could have dropped since whenever I saw that.
Yeah, so either way, I mean, they're a top 5 team. It's a good thing, right? They have a 336 OBP. They have 30 stolen bases, which is currently good for 8th in all of Major League Baseball. So I throw those two stats out there because I say, does that mean the other shoe's going to drop sooner than later in a good way, right? Because OBP is so important and stolen bases, they're active around the base path, but it just hasn't really translated to offensive success and scoring runs. But do we think that's coming, or do we not have faith in this lineup hitting those guys in?
No, your point. This is why I know that stat. I saw they were 3rd in on-base percentage, and I'm saying if you're 3rd in on-base percentage, at some point, these runs should start coming home. You should start hitting better with runners in scoring position. If you're not hitting well with runners in scoring position in April, does that change in May, maybe June? Maybe at some point, if you have guys on base, there's a time where you're going to break open and start to score more runs. So, yeah, that number is a number that I definitely think projects as better times are coming for this offense, right? Hey, you're on base a lot. You got a lot of guys on base. Look, as much as I banged on Trey Turner, he's almost hitting 300. His on-base percentage is pretty good. Rojas, he gets on base a lot at the 9 spot, so the top of the order generally is getting someone on base there. The guys who've been kind of struggling a little bit. Bryce Harper. I mean, he's been not hitting the ball well with runners in scoring position. Once he gets going, that should change the dynamics of the thing. So, yeah, I definitely think the first month of the season, guys have been on base. They have not been coming through.
So now that it's officially May now, we turn the page on April. Give me one guy that you think is going to have a monster month of May. 3 M's there. Monster month of May for the Phils. I'm going a little bit hesitantly. Nick Castellanos. I think Casty's going to explode this month.
I mean, he had probably the best month of April out of everybody on this team. Now he's going to have a better month?
I mean, I think I would say Schwarber had the best month. No, I know Cassie had a good month too, but I'm expecting Cassie to have like an all-star caliber month. That's my bold prediction. Like up his home runs. I know he's had a lot of doubles. But just really step up and be that guy this month.
Hey, listen, if that happens, I mean, I said I think he's been the most consistent player for the Phillies so far in terms of everything. I mean, his batting average is like 278, 3 homers, 17 RBI. So, I mean, he's been kind of solid. I mean, Schwarber's been better, but his batting average for Schwarber is only 239. Castellanos on base percentage is a little low for my. By the way, here's what everything you need to know about Castellanos. He's been good, 278, 3 homers, 70. His WAR is .1. He's essentially not worth a win, right? So him having him on your team is not even worth anything. But I think he's been pretty steady for the most part. Now, the guy that I think has to be the answer here has to be Bryce Harper. 235. Not good enough. I mean, that has to get better. You have to be better with Bryce Harper if this team really wants to take off and start to, put themselves in position to, get 10 games over 500, 15 games. Like, if you want to get to that 90, 95 win mark, if that's really where you want to be in terms of wild card versus division, you're going to need Bryce Harper to start taking off at some point here. Everybody else, the big guys. Schwarber had a hot streak that kind of helped you early. Turner, 298, 375 on base percentage. I got to give him a little bit of credit. He just feels so unimpactful with his hits. And by the way, his WAR is .03. I mean, is .3. So he's not even worth really a win yet. Put it this way. Trey Turner's WAR and Johan Rojas's WAR are exactly the same.
There you go. I mean, and how much is Rojas getting paid? 30,000?
Well, the odd part is, so in terms of WAR, if you're a fan of the WAR stat, which, it's wins above the replacement player. If somebody else played your position that's a regular, Bohm is minus. He's a minus WAR right now. That's how bad he's been. So I can make an argument that I should answer him into this spot because I don't think he's this bad offensively. I just don't think he's this bad. He's a gap-to-gap guy. Is he the guy you want him to be? 25, 30 homers? No, he's not going to be that guy, but he should hit 285 with about 18 homers and drive in 85 to 90 runs right now. But he's been awful.
You say Bryce Harper, and I want to touch on Harper for a second because it's like, you're right. I mean, is Harper a top 20 player right now based off of the month of April? Right? Like, where does Harper...
Not on the month of April.
That right, like where does Harper fall right now at this point in the season? Like we need him to be. We talk about so many other things with this team, and all of those other things are valid and true, right? But we need Harper to be like a top 10 guy in all of Major League Baseball if we really want to win a World Series. And I don't think that's even asking that much.
No, and listen, I mean, the game is so many young players are kind of coming in. It's like, hey, do you look at some of these young guys now and say, I would rather have him than Bryce Harper? Bryce Harper is an older guy. I mean, he's starting to hit the back end. Not the back end. He's in the early portion of his 30s. Would you rather like a Bobby Witt, who's a really young player? I'd probably say, yeah, I would do that. Aaron Judge is obviously, right now, the guy. You got Ohtani, who's outstanding. Paul Goldschmidt, who was not good in Arizona last year. They let him go. He's with the Yankees now. He's got off to a pretty good start. Fernando Tatis, who was, hurt. Last year had a solid year. Now he's ripping it up. He's hitting 345 with 8 homers. I mean, he's in the MVP conversation. You've got a lot of young players out there that you were saying you might not hear much about that you might say, you know what, hey, this guy's doing better. So, no, you're right. Harper has not had near an impact that he should be having.
Yeah, and I'll ask one more about Harper. If he was, let's say he was leader or top 2 or 3 in NL for MVP, he was tearing it up first month of baseball. Do you think this Phillies team would look different, and how much different? I mean, I think they would, right? And I'm not really having that hot of a take with that, but I think Harper can be the difference, and we overlook that so often in this town. It's like we continue to let Harper off the hook.
There's certain guys that are like that, right? They're the stars. They did something in a big moment, and that big moment thing that you do kind of sticks. It's like, hey, he might not be doing it in April, but I know in the biggest moment I've seen him do it. So you get the benefit of the doubt for that sometimes. But I think it's definitely fair to suggest that the reason why this team has been a good team, not a great team in the early going, is that Bryce Harper, quite frankly, has not held up his end of the bargain. I mean, he right now, you take a look at what he's done with runners in scoring position this year. I mean, he just has not produced, right? He has not produced at all in that role, and that's something that high leverage spots for him has been kind of where he has made his calling card to gain the trust of the fans, and he hasn't been great so far this year with that.
So yesterday, you and I think, had a really interesting conversation about, with Ranger Suarez returning on Sunday and Painter coming up in a month or two, a couple months, July, hopefully. This abundance of riches in the starting rotation and lack of depth in the bullpen. Who could potentially be the odd man out and move to the bullpen? I did some digging, and I look at Aaron Nola and his numbers and just the reality of where he's at right now. We all know he's 0-5, first 6 starts. He has a line that he's given up of 272, 336, 456, given up 6 home runs. He's always had a problem with home runs. His velocity's down a couple ticks with his fastball. It almost seems like, based off our combo from yesterday, that Nola's the obvious answer for odd man out right now. He hasn't gotten a win. His lines that he's given up at the plate against opponents are abysmal. His velocity's down. It's like, is this guy just a shell of himself right now?
Oh, that's not fair. I mean, he had a really good shell of himself is, hey, he looks like he's lost and he's throwing 88 miles an hour. He's got nothing. His last start, he was pretty dominant. It's probably the best start that he had. Obviously, no, not probably. It was the best start that he had all season long. We've seen Nola get off the slow starts. I didn't watch his stuff in the first 4 or 5 games. I guess he was 0-5 and say, yeesh, this guy is really not any, when you saw Romano pitch in opening day, he was throwing 91, 92. Well, he was a 98, 97, 98 kind of guy. That looked something was off. Now he's back up to 97, 98. Whereas Nola, the velocity's not down. It just, I don't know, he wasn't making pitches, yada, 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 all that stuff. But I don't think that he's a shell of himself.
Okay. Right now, is it fair to say that he's the odd man out or no?
Well, it's fair if you're just saying, let's be fair. You've been the worst guy of the 5. That's a fair comment. Life's not fair. You build credibility. You build status. He has built status to where telling him you are the 5th guy, that might not go over so well.
But I hear you. But those are the tough decisions that need to be made.
Us two jabronis can have this discussion on a Friday afternoon and be like, it's obvious that he's the 5th guy. Tell me how that goes over when you have to sit him in that chair and be like, hey, man, you're the 5th guy.
Tough, not easy, not well, right? But if this production carries over, and this is the production you're going to get, and these are the results you're going to get as far as wins and losses, you're not going to win a World Series. So it's like, are you afraid to have a tough conversation, or do you want to win a World Series?
I get that, but I'm just going off of sports and the way it's done.
I get it.
And saying it's easy for us, again, to sit here and say, sit the guy down. Tell him he's the worst.
Yep.
Hey, man, you've been a part of our organization for 10 years. You've pitched in many big games for us. Now you're not the guy anymore. That's a hard conversation to have for a guy who, by the way, let's see where he is 10, 15 starts from now. Now, if it's pretty obvious, he's 3-13 with an ERA in the 5s, okay, I think at that point he would say, I'm not pitching my best this year. But if it starts to even out, now you have a tougher conversation because he could be Aaron Nola that he was last year and still might be the 5th guy.
Yeah, and that's just because of our depth and how well other guys are pitching too. It's not all just about him, but I don't know. It's interesting. Hopefully he turns it around.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be because, let's say he gets it back on track and he kind of evens back out to become what he normally is. Then he finishes 10-13 with an ERA of 4.28. Well, that means he pitched pretty well the rest of the way here. And he still might be the 5th best guy. I mean, next to Wheeler, Luzardo, who, by the way, his ERA is still under 2, Christopher Sanchez. Christopher Sanchez is an interesting one, okay?
Yeah.
Here's why. You remember last year, Christopher Sanchez pitched. They like to pitch him at home. So he pitched game 2 last year. Nola pitched game 3.
Yes.
And the reasoning was Sanchez's splits were so much better at home than they were on the road. Well, if you play a wild card series, okay, now you're in the wild card game, and let's just say you're going on the road to play that wild card. You're playing the wild card series like they did a couple years ago. They had to go to St. Louis. Remember, you don't get a home game in the wild card round. All 3 games are at the other spot. Does Sanchez pitch on the road in a wild card round?
Yeah. I'll come back with this. This Phillies team over the recent years and this year, their home versus road splits are dramatic regardless of who pitches. They've been much better at home than they are on the road. Look up their it's not just Christopher Sanchez.
Yeah, no, and well, Sanchez, who's a younger guy, Nola, hey, you're a veteran, you've handled being on the road before. But if all 3 games are scheduled to be on the road, does that factor in to say, you know what, we're not going to pitch Sanchez in the wild card round, and now we have him maybe to pitch game 1 or game 2 of the division series?
Yeah. See, this, I always hate that tidbit that you threw in there, because I hate trying to factor in the future before you solidify what's going on right now. The Phillies should not make in the playoffs any type of decision based off of, well, we can set it up so we have this guy going next round, and then you lose you don't even get to the next round, right?
No doubt. But when you have a unique situation like they do, where you have guys, and now you're going off of splits over definitive, hey, you're definitely our number 3 guy. The Phillies don't have definitively anything. They have 5 really good, possibly 6 really good options if Andrew Painter comes up and gets thrown into the mix. At that point, do you throw the splits out the window? And how do you determine who's number 3, who's number 4? If all these guys are pitching pretty equally, like you said yesterday, Ranger Suarez, what if he's 9-1 with a 1.93 ERA for half a season? Where does he fit in? Does he bounce Christopher Sanchez? Does he bounce Jesus Luzardo? I mean, no one's bouncing Wheeler.
No, that's what I was going to say. Wheeler's our definitive number 1. That's really the only thing we know right now. That's the only thing we can say with certainty is Wheeler's number 1. But I'll ask you, who's number 2, who's number 3 right now?
I think Luzardo's number 2.
Okay. So he's thrown game 2.
I would think that. And then it gets a little tricky because of the Sanchez thing, him pitching on the road versus at home. If they're on the road, say at Chicago, let's say they're playing the Cubs, would they go with Nola just because, he's a veteran at Wrigley Field? Place is probably bonkers. The Cubs back in the playoffs. Let's get a veteran guy who kind of,
I think you saved Nola. I think you saved Nola at that point, and you say, all right, you try and win game 1 with Wheeler. We have Luzardo, who's arguably, the best in NL right now, certainly up there, right, in most of his starts. You try and get those games, and then you can have Nola for the next round, right? And that's the veteran that you can.
You just contradicted yourself, though.
No,
by saying,
I know.
Well, I don't think you.
I know I did. But my main point with saying that is I don't believe Nola's the 3rd best guy, so I'd rather stash him anyway.
I get that. I think that's what we're saying is, there's no guarantee that he is your 3rd best guy. But, again, it goes back to, I don't think there's any criteria that would say this guy's the 3rd guy over him.
No, it's just based off what we feel and what we've seen. I mean, for this conversation, who do we think's our 3rd best pitcher, right?
Well,
in game 3?
It could be as simple as who's the best guy at Wrigley Field, who has the best numbers against this lineup, who's been the best pitcher, on the road. All of those things. Like, hey, let's say Ranger Suarez is 9-1, but his one loss was at Wrigley Field and he gave up 8 runs in 3 innings. Then they might say, you know what, we're not going to let him go out there and face them. We'll go with Nola or. You know what I'm saying? Like, there could be. That's what I'm saying. There is no definitive. He's better than him, and he's better than him, and he's better than him. I think they all. Now, a lot of other teams, that's different. They have definitively. This guy's our best. He's our next best. This guy's our 3rd guy, and then 4th and 5th, we're just throwing darts up in the air.
Yeah, that's where it can get. That's where it can get scary. That's why this conversation is so interesting because. I believe that you can overthink this thing. When all of a sudden, when you have 5 or 6 guys that are really good and you're trying to figure out who's 3, who's 4, all of a sudden, if you start to overthink it and really dive into these analytics and really dive into, well, in the one start against this team, Ranger got rocked, but he's 12-1 otherwise. It's like, we're not going to throw him. Like, I just don't want him to get too far into the mud of analytics and overthink themselves into a loss or an early exit.
Well, when it comes to, again, how would you rank them?
Right
Wheeler,
now, yeah.
Then?
I would go Wheeler. I would go Luzardo. Then I would go, you have to go Sanchez right now. And it gets tough. I mean, I love Ranger, but we haven't seen him yet. I guess Nola's 4, right? And then is Painter around? Is Ranger around? Right? Like, those are the questions that we need answered.
See, I would say right now, based on what we know now,
Walker's,
Wheeler, Luzardo, Sanchez are obviously the best 3.
The top 3.
Suarez hasn't thrown yet. Nola's been the worst.
Yes.
But by the time this all pans out, now things could change, injuries, yada, yada, yada. But if everybody's healthy at the end and you're deciding, today you'd say Wheeler, Luzardo, why not Painter? Why wouldn't Painter be the best option as your number 3 guy?
I agree. I would love to see that happen. It's, we talked about this earlier in the week, I believe. It's like, okay, are they going to manage his innings pitched appropriately so they can potentially use him come playoff time? Or are they not even factoring him in come playoff time and they just want to ease him into things, bring him up for middle of the year, and that's it? Right? Like, we don't know where their mindset's at, but I would love for their mindset to be, hey, let's bring him up and let's potentially use him in the playoffs. I would love to see that.
I think they would, but it goes back to,
really,
is he better than Sanchez? Is he better than Suarez? I don't know.
Well, you think that the Phillies are going to be managing Andrew Painter's innings?
They've already said he's about 130.
No, I know that. I'm saying they're going to manage that to the factoring in to use him potentially for the playoffs.
Well, that's we don't know. I mean, we talked about this last hour, which is, let's say he's at 130 and now you're in a playoff series. Do they just say he's done, he's not pitching anymore, like the Nationals did with Steven Strasburg a couple of years ago, and you look back and regret maybe that you could have won a World Series that year? Now, they ended up winning a World Series down the road with Strasburg and Washington in 2019, but are you going to throw away the possibility this year when he hits that pitching limit?
I don't want him to do that.
I would say they probably would.
That's where I would guess as well, that they're not going to factor in, let's try and manage this so we can use him in the playoffs. I think they're thinking the complete opposite, but I would like to see them manage it with the mindset of let's use this for the postseason.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. What do you guys think on the conversation? I know that pitching thing, it's going to be a big one because Suarez is going to pitch on Saturday. We'll see how he looks on Saturday. Plus, Suarez did say yesterday he would prefer to start, but if they need him to go to the bullpen, he would. Keep in mind, he's a free agent. The other part of this conversation is, do they look to trade Suarez or one of these other pitchers? Dave Gallagher was on last Thursday, and he said, what about trading Christopher Sanchez? Maybe he gets you back even more than Ranger Suarez does. Is that an option? There's so many things here as the Phillies close the first month of the season. They play tonight against the Arizona Diamondbacks. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Hit the subscribe button. Like us on all the platforms. Get a part of the show. Text in 609-403-0973. All right, Friday, here we go. A Phillies stat for the weekend. A Eagles thought. A Sixers hot take. And some wild card story. That's all next on the Sports Bash. At 5:30 on a happy hour Friday, somebody sent in a little Grateful Dead pale ale earlier. Juicy pale ale, sorry. Text in your happy hour Friday picks for me for this weekend for the Phils, 609-403-0973. I like this one. Chilling in AC, just picture of the beach. Someone's hanging out on the beach listening to the Sports Bash. I like that. Is it 85 degrees out there today? Is it acceptable to be at the beach on a May 2? What do you think? What do you got on a May 2 beach day? Is that good?
That's what a local does, man.
Are you in on that?
Absolutely. May and September, if you get this type of weather, you get up there, man. That's it. I respect it.
There was nobody else in this picture on the beach. Just this one dude, it looks like.
That's the move. You have no shoebies with the umbrellas flying at you, the nonsense, right? It's just a peaceful beach up there.
You go umbrella on the beach.
No, man. Come on. Umbrella's a big sigh. A big time sigh for the umbrella. I'm not lugging that thing down there.
The amount of stuff that needs to be lugged to a beach sometimes is unbelievable. It almost takes the joy away of like what you really want to bring to the beach, but then you're like, I don't want to bring all this stuff, and then you're just like, I don't even want to do it.
Dude, when I go now, it's like I try and bring as minimal as possible for that exact reason. All of a sudden, you're like, I don't want to do all this. I don't want to lug all this down there. It ruins it.
The amazing thing is that people will sit in traffic miserably to get here, to then be even more miserable to bring all the stuff that they have to bring to the beach. Like, you're bringing 15 chairs, you're carrying it, rolling the things down there. You got those wagons that have the lousy wheels, like they're not even really, if you don't have the big orange wheels, like that wagon's not doing anything for you.
No, you end up carrying the wagon once you get onto the beach, down to the hard sand, and it's like, what am I doing with my life? It took me 3 hours to pack all this up, to walk it all down, and to pack it all up and bring it back home, only for an hour and a half to sit there. It's a rough life, man.
Yeah, the only way I think it's acceptable to do like the whole thing, like the whole day, you got to be there for the long haul. I'm talking like 11 a.m. to like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. If you're that guy, you're going to like persevere when everybody leaves and you're still hanging out. That's the only way that it's worth it. If you're only going for like a quick little shot down there, you got to go chair only.
Or you just don't bring your family. Here's the single man move. You ride your bike, you have a chair on your back, nothing else. You order a cheesesteak right up to you middle of the day and with a Gatorade or a beer, and that's it, brother. That's the move.
Yeah. There's a guy who sits on the beach that I go to. He's great. He's an older gentleman. He's just got the biggest gut you've ever seen in the world. Doesn't care one bit. It's as brown tan as it's ever been in anybody's life.
Yeah.
And he is just sitting there on one of those lawn chairs. It's from like 1973, the long ones. And he just doesn't care. And he's just like, everybody get out of my way. I'm just sitting here soaking it in.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
He sat in the same spot for 25 years.
25, 55.
55. Right. Exactly. Before we get to some other stuff, you brought up the big gut, and I thought of this line I heard the other day from Gronk. And I don't know if you heard this, it's like a month or two old, but he's like, man, we need coaches to be fat again. He's like, what's up with all these NFL coaches being in shape? He's like, a real football coach who you want to listen to as a player has a huge beer gut.
Right? He just pounded them down all night long, worked up the courage to just yell at you all day.
Right, exactly. Those guys are the real coaches.
Absolutely. All right, what are we getting into?
All right. So, you teased the Phillies stat. I already threw some of the Phillies stats out there to start the last segment, and then we got, sidetracked with a ton of different stuff. But I thought it was interesting with the Phillies OBP, fifth best in all of Major League Baseball, 336 OBP, stolen bases, 30 on the year, which is good for top 10 at 8th. And I think those two stats are signs of things to come in a good way for the Philadelphia Phillies. So that was my stat of the day for the Phils. I don't know if you have any stats or things you want to throw out, but
So the Phillies, to me, the stat for me, we talked a little bit this earlier. I'm going to bring it back up because Rojas is not in the lineup. We do have some audio from Rob Thompson on why he is not in the lineup because earlier today, Bob and I both kind of agreed that he was getting sat down for his lack of baseball IQ last night, trying to stretch that triple. Now, he ended up being safe, but not a smart baseball move. But my stat is he has the 25th best batting average in all of baseball. And yet, he's the one guy that you're like, we got to get him replaced. You got to get him out of the lineup. He's the only guy on the whole team hitting over 300. That's the stat that I look at is how sustainable is Johan Rojas. Now, he's not in the lineup tonight. Here is Rob Thompson explaining why Rojas is not in the lineup tonight.
So Rojas is out of the lineup tonight?
Yeah, just a day off. Might give him another one. He's kind of got played every day. And he's got some body soreness, just general. But he's fine.
So it has nothing to do with the third last night? Did you talk to him about that? How did that go?
Great. It's just about a situation. And, in that situation, just wanted to stand up.
All right, so are you sighing them giving Rojas the night off tonight?
No.
Can you believe we're even asking this question?
Yeah, I know. I thought about saying yes, and I'm like, no, I got to say no to this question, right? I mean,
like, one of the reasons I sigh at this, okay? Now, I understand it if you're trying to penalize him, but they're not. He said, no, we're not penalizing him. He took it pretty well. Okay, fine. I'll play along and believe you. One of the reasons I would say I'm sighing is I don't ever need to see Cal Stevenson play at all. He's not a part of your plans. It doesn't matter if he gets at bats. You know he's out of here as soon as Marsh is back, which means to me, I got Rojas. He's been one of my most consistent offensive performers, and part of the reason why I think he's been a consistent performer is because he's playing every single day. So why would I then sit him to play Cal Stevenson? These are useless at-bats to me.
But it's also, you look at some of those stats, and it's like, isn't that more of the reality of all of the other Phillies that are struggling mightily and the inconsistencies up and down this lineup that are not named Johan Rojas?
Maybe,
right?
But if he's hitting 305 and he's the worst hitter on the team, that means you're really good. He's hitting 305 because he's been the most consistent guy they've got the last couple of weeks here.
What about Sosa? What happened with Sosa?
They started him a bunch of times. He hasn't had a hit since Moses has worn short pants. I don't know. I mean, he's not all that good.
He's not all that good, but Rojas is our savior here. I don't know, man. I don't know if I get on board with this.
No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I know everybody loves Sosa. Sosa's just they've played him. They played him he started on Tuesday and Wednesday. He started back to back. What do you mean? What happened to Sosa? He started Tuesday for Stott when they hit when they threw a lefty. Then he started the next day for Bohm. I don't think he had a hit either day.
Yeah, well, it's more just what happened to him in general, right? I mean, he was the talk of the town in the beginning of the year, and he's still a guy that I believe he doesn't have an error, and he's played 5 different positions.
He's a very good defensive player. No one's arguing that with about Rojas. I mean,
and there's been some serious defensive miscues besides the offensive, struggles.
I mean, listen, they're playing him at second. When there's left-handed pitching, he's been kind of doing that. They played him at third the other night for Bohm. I think you might see him play for Bohm if Bohm doesn't come out of this. I think they tried him in the outfield. Now they have Weston Wilson back, so it's like, is he really going to take Weston Wilson's time and play left field when they need a right-handed bat out there? I doubt it. Then that coincided with Rojas kind of taking off, so they didn't really need him to play center. He's not going to go play center field for his defense. So right. I think a lot of that just kind of all percolated in that, and then it coincided with Stott kind of taking over as the leadoff man here.
Yeah. All right, before we get to some of these other quick topics.
By the way, Sosa is down to 359 after, he was hitting like 5-something. I get it. Well, he went from 5-something to 3-something. He dropped about 200 points.
That was expected, but
absolutely expected. But the point was,
right. Give me the Phillies headline on Monday before we move on to some Sixers and Eagles.
All right, Phillies headline on Monday will be Phillies headline on.
I got mine. I'll say it real quick. Ranger Suarez is the talk on Monday. Suarez has a great outing on Sunday.
I figured you were going to go Suarez. I knew.
Yeah.
I kind of figured you'd go down that route.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with this one. Okay.
Okay.
Aaron Nola back-to-back strong starts. Is Nola back? Is the Nola coaster back on the upswing?
The Nola coaster. All right, we'll see. We'll see if we're talking about either of those on Monday's edition. So, Eagles thought / hot take. Jalen Hurts. I looked at just for fun earlier today. NFL MVP betting odds. Jalen Hurts is 17-1 at DraftKings behind Lamar, Josh Allen, Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes, and Jaden Daniels is also ahead of Jalen Hurts. And I was sitting there saying, one, will Jalen Hurts ever win an MVP? And two, do we want Jalen Hurts to ever win an MVP?
Because, well, why wouldn't I?
Because of the
monetarily?
Version, no. Well, although that's a good point. The version of Jalen Hurts that we saw last year is the best version for this team to win a Super Bowl.
I don't know I mean, they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and he deservingly was in the MVP conversation. That team could have won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, that's fair. He didn't. He was in the conversation, but I don't know if he was ever realistically gonna win it. I mean,
my reasoning would be more monetarily that if he won an MVP, then you would have to pay him MVP level dollars, and I don't know that I want to go to that level at that position if I don't have to.
I think they're already, he's already on track to get paid a boatload. You see what?
Well, he's already getting paid a boatload.
Right.
He was the highest paid player in NFL history for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like every guy is every other week. But yeah, that's the point. So I don't know if that's really a huge factor, although it will factor in. But do you think he ever will win MVP?
No, I do not.
Interesting.
No, I mean, I just think, now he'll always be in the odds for two reasons. One, the Eagles should always be good.
Yeah.
Two, it's Philadelphia, and the odds makers know that Eagle fans will bet on their guys. They're so loyal. That's why the Eagles and Phillies and Sixers are always in betting odds. This guy going to get traded there. Why? Because the Phillies are a high-profile team. The Eagles are a high-profile team. The Sixers, they're always making news. So anytime there's betting odds that have a player being traded or something like that, they're always going to push those odds up a little bit more so that Philadelphia fans will get involved in the action. So I do think Hurts will always be a candidate, or a betting candidate, I guess I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, he is worthy of being a top 5 to 10 guy on the odds boards based off his play, even if he was in Jacksonville,
I got no problem with that. I mean, I definitely think that he is one of the more confusing stars in this league, because some people just think he's average. Some people think he's really, I mean, there's not like there's not a overwhelming of, oh, this guy's really good. It's like some people think he's really good. Some people think he's just average. It's kind of maybe 60-40. It's not like a 70-30, 80-20 thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. All right. We'll get to a Sixers hot take, which is, I do not want the 76ers to end up with the number 1 or number 2 overall pick in the NBA draft.
Well, that's really a hot take. You got to explain yourself here.
Yeah. So the Sixers are in a weird spot. One, because of Joel Embiid and what's his future, what's he going to look like next season. Also because you have a guy in Tyrese Maxey who he made an all-star. We don't know what type of guy he's going to evolve into. McCain, same thing. Looked great last year when he played. So we have all these pieces, but if you end up with a number 1 overall pick, I fear that they're going to try and trade that pick, right? If you end up with the 4th or 5th pick, then they're going to get a guy like Ace Bailey or Derek Queen, and I think that's the exact type of player that this 76ers team needs. I want them to get
exactly the opposite. I think if they get the number 1 pick, they take flag, and then they say, here we go. If they get a pick in the 5 or 6 range, they're more inclined to move it.
Yeah, I don't know, man, because Flag, I would love for them to get Flag, right? And I hope they would end up drafting him.
Give me a reason why you would think, you know what, we got the number 1 pick, let's trade it.
Because of the value of this year's number 1 overall pick, the mind of Daryl Morey, who is always looking for current superstars. Just look at Daryl Morey's history and track record. That's what he does. He trades and chases for current stars, right? So you look at all those things and you say, man, this number 1 overall pick is as valuable as it's ever going to be. Let's try and flip it. That's what I believe Daryl Morey will try and do, which I wouldn't even blame him for trying to do that.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with that. I think Morey, look, this is why, and like people think Morey's the worst. He's horrible. He should have been fired. I'd say differently. Look,
Idiots.
he's won 60% of his games. I get it. It's regular season games. He's never won a title. He's been to the Western Conference Finals twice. And by the way, back then the Western Conference was a clear superior conference. So it wasn't that they were getting to the Western Conference Finals. They were getting to the Western Conference Finals when the Western Conference was way superior at that time. So I think even though I think this season was the worst season in the history of the franchise, to which people say, if you have the worst season in the history of the franchise, you deserve to be fired. Mostly, sure, I can play along, but I think Morey has built up enough of a track record to say, hey, I had a bad year. And he did have a bad year. He was part of the bad year. Now, the injuries were part of it, and you would say, well, he signed Embiid, and he signed. Fine, I'm playing along. I agree with everybody. He had a horrible year. But I think he's done well enough in the draft, finding young talent from the back end. Now, is he better at finding back end draft talent? He's never really drafted in the top 5. This is a whole new world for him. But I am intrigued to see how he manages a draft playing at the top, in the front of the pack.
I think he's going to do great. I mean, it's like if you have an ability and a knack for finding talent when it's harder to do it, you're not going to struggle when it's easier to do it. I mean, that's how I look at it. We'll see. But for all the people that saying Morey's an idiot, he should be fired, there was a poll done by Philly Voice. They polled 476ers fans before this NBA season, and they said, what are your expectations for the 76ers this year? 63% of those fans said the Sixers will get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And a majority of those fans said this offseason was an A and a success. So you cannot say now, just because you have the benefit of hindsight, that they stink, and he stinks.
I agree. Listen, I said it was a injury-riddled season. If it's a season again like last year, he's got to go. No questions asked. You say, listen, the vibe is too bad. You just got to change it up. Now, I don't think it's going to go that way, but I might be way off base on that. I think that they will be I think this offseason will generate buzz. That's my Sixer hot take.
Okay. I like it. I don't think it's that hot, but I'll vibe with you.
I think, well, people are pretty down on this team right now.
Yes, very. As down as they've ever been.
So I think it's a pretty hot take to say, I think they will do enough this offseason that will build buzz entering the season.
All right. I hope you're right, man. They need to.
Got it. All right. That's it for today's edition of Rye or Sigh. All right, man. See ya.
Later.
All right, there you go. Friday edition of Rye or Sigh here on the Sports Bash Live. I got the Bet365 play of the day coming up next. Stick around for that. And my happy hour Friday picks. I got 2 good ones for you. That's next. This is the Sports Bash. All right, everybody, time for the Bet365 play of the day. We'll get you out of there in just a moment on that. I got a couple of Happy Hour Friday picks for you. By the way, other people have been sending them in all day. Good stuff from the people. Grabbed a couple there. Here's one from Josh and Kate May. Kane Whitehall, a delicious New England IPA, 4.11 on Untapped. Josh, I got to get that. Anything in the 4 range is a winner generally. Somebody's giving me a 4 on the Untapped app. That's a winner generally.
That's what I would call, yes, I'm very intrigued.
CC. Very intrigued. All right, I got 2 for you here. Actually, maybe 3. This one is kind of I said about the Dogfish earlier. This one's kind of coming for the summertime. I'm a big fan of the Lagunitas Daytime beer, which is very light, low-carb, low-cal IPA. Got a little bite on it. There's a new one called Dogfish 30 Minutes. So they have the 90-minute, they have the 60-minute. They just created a new 30-minute, and it's low-cal, low-carb. It's kind of a beach crusher. Bang! For the summertime, 85 degrees, Dogfish 30 Minutes. Now, if you're asking me Dogfish 30 Minutes or Lagunitas, I think if you can get the Lagunitas, I go the Lagunitas route. But I do like this as a nice alternative to 30-minute. My other one is Mud Hen. Got this one the other night, Josh. Shore Trip from Mud Hen. It's an IPA. Nice. I like their gander better, but they don't always have the gander on there. So the people from Mud Hen, Shore Trip, check that out there. They are my Happy Hour Friday picks for the people out there. My picks for you, it's an over tonight. Like Warriors Rockets over tonight. That is my Bet365 play of the day. How'd we do last night, by the way?
You won. The next covered by the 1.5.
Yeah, I remembered that. Now that you tell me I do, because I talked about it earlier today, that Knicks game, they advanced. They're playing the Celtics. That game's a Monday nighter, I believe, with game 1.
That's correct.
It's a rotten series. I have to root for somebody.
Nova.
That's it for me. Be back on Monday with more Sports Bash. Have a great weekend, everybody.